The chevron's metallic clang echoed through the SGC gate room for the 7th time, and the wormhole exploded outward in its usual violent shimmer of blue energy before settling into the stable event horizon. Nothing unusual about that. What was unusual was the panicked voice crackling over the radio from P3X-774, a planet that wasn't supposed to have anyone on it. Unscheduled off-world activation, the technician announced, though everyone in the control room could see the obvious. General Hammond stepped forward, hands clasped behind his back, studying the rippling surface of the Stargate with practiced wariness. After 5 years of running this facility, he'd learned that surprises through the gate were rarely pleasant ones. MALP telemetry shows massive energy readings, Major Carter reported from her station, fingers flying across the keyboard. Her eyes widened. "Sir, I'm detecting a power signature unlike anything in our database. It's not Naquata-based, not Asgard, not any known Goa'uld configuration. And it's putting out enough energy to power a small city." Colonel O'Neill appeared at Hammond's shoulder, P-90 already in hand. "So, what? Somebody left their cosmic kettle on. Whatever it is, it just came through our gate from P3X-774, Carter continued, ignoring Jack's sarcasm with practiced ease. "That world's been uninhabited since we surveyed it 6 months ago. No Stargate activity, no energy readings, nothing." Hammond's jaw tightened. P3X-774 was supposed to be a dead world, useful only as a fallback position or emergency waypoint. Now something with a power plant that made Carter nervous had appeared there and activated the Stargate. "Colonel, take SG-1 through. Investigate and report back. Rules of engagement are defensive only until we know what we're dealing with." "Yes, sir." O'Neill jerked his head toward the gate. "Carter, Daniel, TLC. Let's go see what's knocking." The team moved with efficient precision, checking weapons and gear as they ascended the ramp. The wormhole's familiar hum filled the gate room, a sound that always reminded Amuro Ray of something he'd never quite experienced, until today. On P3X-774, the young pilot sat in the cockpit of the RX-78-2 Gundam, hands shaking on controls that had stopped responding 3 minutes ago. The panoramic monitor showed an alien landscape of red sand and purple sky, nothing like the space colony he'd been defending against Xeon mobile suits moments before. 1 second he'd been dodging a Zaku's Heat Hawk, the next a spatial distortion had torn reality apart and dumped him here. Wherever here was. The Minovsky reactor hummed steadily beneath him, core temperature nominal, but every other system was screaming warnings. Fuel reserves at 40%. Communications completely dead. Not jammed, just silent across every frequency. Navigation showed nothing but error codes. And directly in front of the Gundam, maybe 50 meters away, stood a massive stone ring covered in symbols he'd never seen, still glowing with some kind of blue energy field. Amuro's new type senses prickled. Something was coming through that ring. Multiple somethings. Armed. His hand moved to the beam rifle's trigger instinctively, then stopped. He'd already fought one war. Started it as a civilian kid who stumbled into a cockpit and ended it as Earth Federation's ace pilot with more kills than he could count. The Gundam sensor suite labeled these approaching signatures as human, or human adjacent, but after months of combat, Amuro had learned that enemies wore many faces. The spatial distortion had taken something from him beyond just his location. It had taken his certainty. In the universal century, he knew who the enemy was. Here, covered in alien sand under an alien sky, he didn't know anything anymore. 4 figures emerged from the blue shimmer, weapons raised. Amuro toggled external speakers. "This is Lieutenant Amuro Ray, Earth Federation Forces, serial number." He stopped. Would serial numbers even mean anything here? "I'm not hostile." Repeat, not hostile. "I don't know where I am or how I got here." Through the Gundam's sophisticated sensor suite, he watched the 4 figures spread into tactical formation. Professional. Military. 3 men and 1 woman, all carrying weapons that looked advanced but not impossible. Nothing like beam weapons. Projectile-based, probably. One of the men, older, gray at the temples, confident bearing, stepped forward. "This is Colonel Jack O'Neill, United States Air Force, Stargate Command. You're on P3X-774, which is currently under Earth jurisdiction. And you're sitting in what I'm going to generously call the biggest lawsuit waiting to happen I've ever seen. Stargate Command. Earth jurisdiction." The words hit Amuro like a lifeline and a puzzle at the same time. Earth. He was still in Earth's sphere of influence, somehow. But what was a Stargate? And why had the man emphasized United States Air Force like there were other kinds? "I need to speak with your commanding officer," Amuro said, keeping his voice steady despite the adrenaline crash starting to hit him. I think I'm not from your Earth. Or your time. I was in combat when a spatial anomaly pulled me here. The 4 soldiers exchanged glances. The woman, Carter, based on the name tape visible through his sensors, had some kind of scanning device out and was studying the Gundam with an expression Amuro recognized. He'd seen it on engineers back at Side 7 when they first laid eyes on the completed mobile suit. Scientific fascination warring with tactical concern. "O'Neill, I'm reading energy emissions consistent with a controlled fusion reaction," Carter reported. "Compact, incredibly efficient. And there's some kind of particle field emanating from the machine that's interfering with our radio communications." Minovsky particles, Amuro confirmed. Side effect of the reactor. They disrupt radar and radio within a certain radius. I can dial it back if you have technicians who can. "Technicians who can what, kid?" O'Neill interrupted. "Give your giant robot a tune-up. Look, I don't know what kind of Saturday morning cartoon you walked out of, but we've got procedures for this sort of thing. You're going to need to power down that thing and come with us." Amuro's hand tightened on the controls. Power down the Gundam? Leave himself defenseless in an unknown environment? Every combat instinct screamed against it. But the alternative was treating these people as enemies, and his new type senses weren't registering hostile intent. Cautious, yes. Professional, absolutely. But not hostile. "If I power down the reactor, it'll take 6 hours to restart," Amuro said carefully. "And I don't have support crew here to help with the procedure. But I can exit the cockpit and speak face to face. The Gundam isn't going anywhere without a pilot." Another exchange of glances. The large man, had to be over 2 meters tall, maybe more, spoke for the first time. "The warrior shows wisdom. A weapon does not fire itself." "Thank you, TLC," O'Neill said dryly. "Kid, we're going to need you to come down here. Slowly. And leave any weapons you've got in that cockpit. We'll sort out the details back at base." Amuro took a breath, then initiated the core fighter separation sequence. The Gundam's torso split open, and the small fighter that served as its cockpit detached with a hiss of hydraulics. He guided it down to the sand 30 meters from the soldiers, then popped the canopy. The gravity felt wrong. Not much, maybe 0.9 standard, but enough to notice. The air smelled different too. Dry, with a mineral tang that reminded him of the lunar surface somehow. Amuro climbed out of the core fighter, and 4 weapons immediately tracked him. He raised his hands. 16 years old, pilot suit still scorched from his last battle, and surrounded by soldiers from a version of Earth that apparently had its own interstellar military. The absurdity of the situation almost made him laugh. "I know this looks insane," Amuro said, meeting O'Neill's eyes. "Trust me, from my perspective, it feels insane. But I'm telling the truth. I'm from Earth, or an Earth. Universal Century 0079. We were colonized space, built colonies at the Lagrange points, and we're in the middle of a war. I was defending Side 7 when something pulled me here. The fourth member of the team, scholarly-looking, glasses, clearly civilian, stepped forward with an expression that was equal parts sympathetic and fascinated. Universal Century. Side 7. That's not any dating system I've ever heard of. I'm Daniel Jackson, archaeologist and linguist. When you say you're from Earth, do you mean this Earth, or are we talking parallel dimensions? Alternate timelines? I don't know, Amuro admitted, and hated how young his voice sounded. I just know 1 second I was in combat, the next I was here. And that gate, he pointed at the Stargate. I've never seen anything like it. We don't have that technology. Carter's scanner beeped insistently. Sir, I'm detecting residual tachyon emissions around the gate. Consistent with transdimensional travel, not temporal displacement. He might actually be telling the truth about being from another Earth. Oh, that's just perfect, O'Neill muttered. Another Earth. Because dealing with Goa'uld, replicators, and Anubis wasn't enough. Now we've got parallel dimensions dropping giant robots in our lap. He lowered his P90 fractionally. Alright, kid. Here's what's going to happen. We're going back through that gate, the Stargate, to our base. You're coming with us. And that, he gestured at the Gundam, is going to have to wait here until we figure out how to transport it. Transport it? Amuro's eyes widened. The Gundam mass is over 40 tons. You'd need heavy lift capacity, specialized equipment. We'll manage, O'Neill said with the confidence of a man who'd seen stranger things. TLC, dial home. Carter, send a message ahead that we're bringing back a guest and he's got the mother of all luggage waiting for pickup. As TLC moved to the DHD and began pressing symbols, Amuro felt his new type senses flare. Something about the Stargate's activation resonated on a level he couldn't quite explain. When the wormhole burst into existence again, he felt it like a ripple across space itself, not unlike the sensation of another new-type's presence, but vaster, older, mechanical yet somehow alive. Welcome to Stargate Command, kid, O'Neill said as the event horizon stabilized. Try not to break anything. Amuro took one last look at the RX-78-2 Gundam standing silent in the alien sand, then followed the soldiers toward the impossible blue portal. He'd survived the 1-year war by adapting to impossible situations. Whatever lay on the other side of that gate, he'd face it the same way. One step at a time. Like always. If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below. Indeed. The wormhole swallowed them, and Amuro Ray left one impossible situation for another, carried by technology his Earth had never dreamed of toward a future he couldn't begin to predict. The rematerialization process felt nothing like spatial jumps in the universal century. Amuro's stomach lurched as reality seemed to compress and then expand, molecules disassembled and reassembled in microseconds. When his vision cleared, he stood in a massive underground facility, gray concrete and steel stretching in every direction, with the Stargate mounted on a platform behind him. Dozens of weapons pointed at his chest. Stand down. O'Neill's voice cut through the tension. He's friendly. Probably. Maybe. We're still working on it. The soldiers lowered their rifles fractionally, but Amuro could feel the weight of their attention. Through the observation window above, more personnel watched with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright alarm. His new type awareness picked up the emotional texture of the room, fear, curiosity, professional discipline holding chaos at bay. Welcome to Stargate Command, a broad-shouldered man in Air Force blues descended the metal stairs from the control room. 2 stars gleamed on his shoulders. General, then. I'm Major General George Hammond, commanding officer of this facility. And you are? Lieutenant Amuro Ray, Earth Federation Space Force. The words came automatically, muscle memory from countless debriefings. Serial number, he stopped again, realizing how absurd it sounded. I don't think my credentials mean much here, sir. Hammond's expression softened slightly. No, I suppose they don't. Colonel O'Neill's preliminary report suggests you're from an alternate Earth. Is that your assessment as well? I think so, sir. Amuro kept his hands visible, non-threatening. The soldiers surrounding him were professionals, but they were nervous. He'd seen enough combat to recognize trigger discipline under stress. My Earth has orbital colonies, mobile suit technology, and we're in the middle of a civil war. Universal Century 0079. None of this, he gestured at the Stargate, the advanced facility, exists in my timeline. We barely have functional space travel beyond the Earth sphere. Mobile suit. Carter stepped forward, tablet in hand, scientific curiosity winning out over caution. Is that what you call that machine? The 18-meter bipedal weapons platform? Yes, ma'am. The RX-78-2 Gundam. It's a prototype mobile suit, a manned humanoid fighting vehicle designed for space and terrestrial combat. Amuro met her eyes, recognizing a kindred spirit. An engineer's mind behind a soldier's discipline. It runs on a compact Minovsky fusion reactor and mounts beam weapons, Vulcan guns, and melee armament. Beam weapons. Carter's fingers flew across her tablet. You mean directed energy weapons? Particle beam? Plasma-based? Megaparticle cannons. They use Minovsky particle physics too. Major Carter. Hammond's voice carried gentle reproach. Perhaps we could conduct the technical debriefing after we've established the young man's situation. Sorry, sir. Carter didn't look particularly sorry. Hammond turned back to Amiro, his gaze assessing but not unkind. Son, how old are you? 16, sir. The room went quiet. Amiro watched expressions shift, surprise, discomfort, something that might have been pity. He'd seen those looks before, back when he first stumbled into the Gundam's cockpit on Side 7. The look adults gave child soldiers. 16. Hammond's voice carried careful neutrality. And you're piloting a weapons system that, according to Major Carter's preliminary scans, could level a city block. I didn't ask for it, sir. The words came out harder than Amuro intended. I was a civilian. Engineering student. The Principality of Zeon attacked Side 7, killed half the colony including my neighbors, and I ended up in the Gundam's cockpit because I was the only one there when they breached the hangar. After that, he trailed off. After that, he'd become the Federation's ace pilot. After that, he'd killed more people than he could count. After that, he'd stopped being a kid. Daniel Jackson stepped forward, expression sympathetic. Nobody's blaming you. We've all been thrust into situations beyond our control. The question is what happens now. Right now, Hammond said, you're going to be our guest while we sort this out. We'll need to verify your story, run some medical tests to ensure you're not carrying any biological contaminants, and figure out how you got here. And we'll need to address the situation with your mobile suit. The Gundam stays powered down until I know what's happening, Amuro said firmly. No offense, General, but I don't know you. I don't know this place. And that mobile suit is the only thing standing between me and being completely helpless in an unknown dimension. Kid's got a point, O'Neill muttered. Hammond's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Understood. However, I need your word that you won't attempt to activate that machine without authorization. This facility is located inside a mountain, Lieutenant. If that fusion reactor you mentioned has any kind of malfunction. It won't, sir. Minovsky reactors are stable unless deliberately overloaded or damaged in combat. And the Gundam systems have multiple redundant safeties. Amuro paused. But I give you my word. I won't activate it without discussing it with you first. That'll have to do. Hammond gestured to two airmen. Escort Lieutenant Ray to VIP quarters on level 19. He's to be treated as a guest, not a prisoner, but he's restricted to that level until further notice. Post guards, but keep them discreet. Sir, Carter interjected, with your permission, I'd like to return to P3X-774 with an engineering team. If we can study that mobile suit's power system. That thing sitting on an unsecured planet broadcasting an energy signature that probably lit up sensors from here to the Asgard homeworld, O'Neill said. We need to get it back here before someone with worse intentions than ours decides to claim salvage rights. Hammond considered this. Agreed. Major Carter, assemble a team. I want that machine transported back here ASAP. Use the cargo gate if you have to, but I want it secured in our hangar bay by 1800 hours. And Carter? He fixed her with a stern look. Nobody touches it without Lieutenant Ray's cooperation. Am I clear? Crystal, sir. Amuro felt a knot in his chest loosen slightly. They were being cautious, but not hostile. Treating the Gundam with respect, not as a prize to be seized. Maybe this Earth's military had some honor after all. One more thing, Amuro said as the airman approached. The Minovsky particles. They interfere with radio communications and radar. If you're planning to transport the Gundam here, you'll need to account for that. Any remote systems near it will be disrupted. Carter's eyes lit up. A particle field that disrupts electromagnetic communications. That's incredible. What's the radius of effect? Depends on reactor output, but usually about 2 kilometers at combat settings. We'll adapt, Hammond said. Dismissed, all of you. Colonel, a word in my office. As the airman led Amuro toward the elevator, he caught fragments of conversation, Daniel murmuring something about dimensional refugees and ethical obligations, TLC's deep voice commenting on warriors far from home. But it was Carter's excited technical speculation about Minovsky physics that followed him down the corridor. The VIP quarters were Spartan but functional. Single bed, desk, private bathroom, no windows, which made sense for an underground facility. The airmen posted themselves outside with professional courtesy, and Amuro found himself alone for the first time since the dimensional jump. He collapsed onto the bed, adrenaline finally crashing. His pilot suit still stank of scorched electronics and sweat. His hands shook. New type awareness picked up the emotional echoes of the facility around him, hundreds of people, most radiating calm professionalism, some broadcasting fear or excitement. And deeper, much deeper, something else. A presence that felt almost like the Gundam's reactor but vaster, older, humming through the mountain itself. The Stargate. Had to be. Amuro closed his eyes and reached out with his new type senses, trying to understand what he'd felt during transport. The wormhole had resonated with something in his awareness, like it operated on principles that touched the same space new types perceived. Minovsky physics explained how particles could disrupt electromagnetic fields. What physics explained instant travel across space, or between dimensions? A knock interrupted his thoughts. Daniel Jackson entered, carrying a tray with food and what looked like a medical kit. Thought you might be hungry. And Dr. Fraser, our chief medical officer, asked me to check if you'd be willing to come down for an examination. Standard procedure for anyone coming through the gate. I'm clean, Amuro said, sitting up. No biological contaminants. We had strict quarantine protocols on the colonies. I believe you, but regulations are regulations. Daniel set the tray on the desk. For what it's worth, I understand what you're going through. Not the parallel dimension part, but the sudden displacement. I spent a year living on another planet once, completely cut off from Earth. It's disorienting. Another planet? Amuro stared at him. You travel to other planets through that gate? That's what the Stargate does. It's a transportation network built by an ancient alien race called the Ancients. There are thousands of gates across the galaxy, maybe more. Each one connects to others through stable wormholes. Daniel sat in the desk chair, his demeanor more academic than military. Your arrival is unusual, though. The gate isn't supposed to connect between dimensions. Just physical space. The spatial distortion that pulled me through felt different from the gate travel, Amuro admitted. The distortion was violent, uncontrolled. The gate was smoother. More deliberate. Interesting. Daniel pulled out a notebook. Would you mind if I asked you some questions? About your Earth, your technology level, your history. It might help us understand how you got here. Amuro hesitated, then nodded. These people could have treated him as a hostile combatant. Instead, they'd offered quarters, food, and what seemed like genuine curiosity. What do you want to know? Start with the basics. You mentioned Universal Century 0079. What came before the Universal Century? Common Era ended around 2045, I think. The Universal Century calendar started when humanity established the first space colonies at the Lagrange points. We moved billions of people off Earth to orbital habitats. 50 million per colony, rotating cylinders that generate artificial gravity through centrifugal force. Daniel's pen scratched across paper. Billions? We barely have a permanent presence in space. The International Space Station, some satellites, classified military projects. But nothing approaching that scale. We had to. Earth was dying, overpopulation, pollution, resource depletion. The colonies were supposed to be humanity's salvation. Amuro's voice turned bitter. Instead, they became the battleground for independence. The Principality of Zeon, Spasinoids who want independence from the Earth Federation, declared war. They dropped a colony on Earth. Killed billions. Now we're fighting to survive. The room fell silent. Daniel's expression had shifted from curiosity to horror. They dropped a colony. A habitat with millions of people. It was already evacuated. Mostly. They used it as a kinetic weapon. Amuro's hands clenched. Colony drop devastated Australia, changed global climate. That's what started the 1-year war. That's the world I come from, Dr. Jackson. Total war, weapons of mass destruction, and kids like me piloting machines designed to kill other kids in mobile suits on the other side. I'm sorry. Daniel's voice carried genuine sympathy. We've dealt with our share of genocidal enemies. The Goa'uld have enslaved and murdered billions across the galaxy. But using a colony as a weapon, he shook his head. No wonder you're cautious about trusting us. You gave me a room instead of a cell, Amuro said quietly. That counts for something. A different knock, and Carter poked her head in. Sorry to interrupt, but we've got the transport operation underway. Lieutenant Ray, we're going to need your help with the Minovsky reactor shutdown procedure. I'd prefer not to accidentally irradiate RX-78-2 because we didn't follow proper protocols. Amuro stood immediately. The reactor won't irradiate anything unless you breach containment, but yes, I should be there. The Gundam systems are biometrically locked to me anyway. Biometrically locked? Carter's eyes gleamed. Like retinal scan? Fingerprint? Brainwave pattern recognition? Nu-type compatible interface? At their blank looks, Amuro sighed. I'll explain on the way. As they walked through the facility's corridors, Amuro realized he was adapting faster than he'd expected. Maybe it was his new type abilities picking up on the genuine intentions around him, or maybe it was simply recognizing competent professionals when he saw them. Either way, this Earth's military seemed willing to work with him rather than simply extracting what they wanted. The question was whether that cooperation would survive when they realized what the Gundam, and its pilot, were truly capable of. In the gate room, the Stargate activated again, and Amuro felt that resonance once more. Something about the technology sang to his new type senses, and he filed the observation away for later. One step at a time. Figure out how to get the Gundam secured. Then figure out how to get home. If home still existed. The Gundam arrived at Stargate Command in pieces. Amuro stood in the massive hangar bay on level 28, watching as Asgard beaming technology, another impossibility from this Earth's reality, transported the RX-78-2 section by section through the mountain's rock. Each flash of white light deposited another component, leg actuators, torso assembly, the backpack with its distinctive twin thrusters, arm sections still clutching beam sabers and shield. Incredible, Carter breathed beside him, tablet recording every detail. The engineering tolerances are extraordinary. These joints, the articulation points, you said this thing can operate in both space and atmosphere? Full environmental capability, Amuro confirmed, watching technicians carefully position each section according to his instructions. The Gundam was designed for versatility. Space combat, terrestrial operations, underwater deployment if necessary. Luna titanium armor resists most conventional weapons, and the Minovsky reactor provides enough power for extended operations. And the beam rifle? She pointed at the massive weapon being lowered onto a reinforced cradle. You called it a megaparticle cannon. Fires concentrated Minovsky particles at near-light speed. Can punch through battleship armor at maximum output. Amuro saw her expression and added, I know how it sounds. But in my universe, this is standard military hardware. The Gundam's only special because it's more advanced than most mobile suits, not because the technology itself is impossible. In your universe. Carter's voice carried a note of wonder. Lieutenant, in ours, this represents a technological leap of at least 50 years. Maybe more. The power-to-weight ratio alone. Major Carter. A new voice cut through the hangar bay. Amuro turned to see a man in civilian clothes approaching, flanked by two soldiers. Mid-40s, expensive suit, expression of calculated interest that made Amuro's new type senses prickle with warning. I don't believe we've been introduced. Colonel Frank Simmons, NID. Carter's expression soured. Colonel Simmons. I wasn't aware the NID had been briefed on this situation. The appearance of advanced alien technology falls under our purview, Major. Especially when that technology arrives through unauthorized gate activation. Simmons' attention fixed on Amuro with uncomfortable intensity. Lieutenant Ray. Fascinating story you've told General Hammond. Alternate dimension, Civil War, child soldier program. Very compelling. It's not a story, Amuro said flatly. It's what happened. Of course. And I'm sure you believe that. Simmons circled the partial Gundam assembly like a shark examining prey. But you'll understand our caution. We have enemies who would love to infiltrate this facility with advanced technology and a sympathetic cover story. The Goa'uld, for instance, are masters of deception. The Goa'uld? Amuro's hand instinctively moved toward where his sidearm would be if he were in full pilot gear. Who are they? Parasitic aliens who enslave host bodies and pose as gods, Carter said, her tone suggesting she'd dealt with Simmons before and hadn't enjoyed it. They're not relevant to this situation. Lieutenant Ray's dimensional signature is confirmed. He's not Goa'uld, not a host, and his technology operates on completely different principles than anything in our database. So you say. But the NID needs to verify these claims independently. Simmons produced a tablet. I'm requisitioning the mobile suit for transfer to Area 51. Our specialists there are better equipped to. No, Amuro's voice cut like a beam saber through armor. Every head in the hangar bay turned. The Gundam isn't going anywhere without me. And I'm not going to Area 51 or anywhere else until I understand what's happening. Simmons' expression hardened. Son, you're in no position to. I'm the only person who can operate that mobile suit, Amuro interrupted. His new type awareness picked up the emotional currents in the room. Carter's approval, the technician's nervous tension, Simmons' barely concealed anger. The control system is biometrically locked to my brainwave patterns. Without me, the Gundam is 43 tons of very expensive sculpture. And if you try to force the issue, I'll activate the emergency self-destruct before I let it fall into hostile hands. The hangar bay went silent. You're bluffing, Simmons said. I survived 8 months of the 1-year war, Amuro said quietly. I've watched colonies burn, fought battles where the odds of survival were measured in single-digit percentages, and killed enough people that I stopped counting. Do I look like I'm bluffing? Carter stepped between them, her voice professionally calm but carrying an edge. Colonel Simmons, General Hammond has assigned Lieutenant Ray to SGC custody pending full evaluation. The Gundam remains here under the same restrictions. If the NID has concerns, you're welcome to file them through proper channels. Proper channels. Simmons' smile didn't reach his eyes. Of course, Major. I'm sure General Hammond will be interested to hear about the 16-year-old making threats in his facility. He turned to leave, then paused. One more thing, Lieutenant. You mentioned your Earth is in the middle of a civil war. Wars require soldiers. Soldiers require orders. Who do you take orders from? Right now? No one, Amuro said. The Federation is in another dimension. Here, I'm just trying to survive. How convenient. Simmons departed, his entourage following. Carter let out a breath. Welcome to inter-service politics. The NID likes to think they run things when it comes to alien technology. They're going to be a problem. What's their authority? Amuro watched the Gundam's final components materialize. Can they actually requisition the mobile suit? Legally? It's complicated. The NID operates outside normal military channels. They've been known to bend rules when they think national security is at stake. She met his eyes. You made an enemy just now. Simmons doesn't forget. I've had worse enemies. Amuro moved to the Gundam's partial assembly, running his hands over the Luna titanium plating. Familiar surfaces, combat-scarred but intact. The mobile suit was his responsibility, his weapon, his partner, the machine that had kept him alive through impossible battles. In my universe, there are people who would kill for this technology. I'm not letting it fall into the wrong hands here either. Understandable. Carter consulted her tablet. We need to establish some operational parameters. Can you walk me through the Gundam systems? Power consumption, weapons capabilities, operational limitations. General Hammond wants a complete threat assessment. Threat assessment. Amuro looked at her sharply. Standard procedure. We need to know what we're dealing with, Lieutenant. That includes understanding what your mobile suit can and can't do. She softened slightly. I know you're not a threat. But my job is to protect this facility and everyone in it. Help me do that. Amuro considered this. She was being direct, honest. Not trying to manipulate or deceive. His new type senses confirmed it, genuine curiosity mixed with professional caution. All right. But I need something in return. What? Information. Everything you can tell me about this Earth, how the Stargate works, and whether there's any way to get me home. Carter smiled. Deal. Come on, let's set up in the briefing room. This is going to take a while. 3 hours later, Amuro's head spun with information that rewrote everything he thought he knew about reality. Ancient aliens called the ancients who built the Stargates millions of years ago. Parasitic Goa'uld posing as gods and enslaving human populations across the galaxy. The Asgard, actual Roswell Greys, allied with Earth against common threats. Replicators, nanite swarms that consumed technology. A war spanning multiple galaxies with Earth somehow at the center despite having achieved spaceflight barely decades ago in this timeline. So you're telling me, Amuro said slowly, that humanity in this dimension discovered instant interstellar travel, encountered dozens of hostile alien species, and survived against impossible odds. All in the last 5 years. Pretty much, O'Neill confirmed from his seat at the briefing table. He'd joined halfway through Carter's technical explanation, bringing coffee and sardonic commentary. Welcome to the Stargate program. We specialize in the impossible and stupid. And you think I might be able to return to my dimension through the Stargate? Amuro pressed. If it brought me here, it could send me back. Not the Stargate itself, Carter said, pulling up data on the wall monitor. But your arrival triggered unusual readings. Tachyon emissions, spatial distortions, quantum signatures we've never seen before. If we can understand how you got here, we might be able to replicate the effect. It would take time, research, and there's no guarantee it would work, Daniel finished gently. He'd joined them an hour ago, bringing historical context about the ancients. I'm sorry, Amuro. The truth is we've never attempted anything like this. Dimensional travel is theoretical even for the most advanced races we've encountered. But possible? Amuro heard the desperation in his own voice and hated it. Maybe. Carter's honesty was almost worse than a comforting lie. The Asgard might have insights. There are ancient databases we haven't fully explored. But it would be a long-term project, not a quick fix. Amuro slumped in his chair. Long-term. Which meant he was stuck here, cut off from everything he knew. The Federation, his crew aboard White Base, even his mother, if she was still alive after the war devastated Earth. Everyone he'd fought beside, everyone he'd lost, all in another dimension he might never reach again. Hey. O'Neill's voice cut through the spiral. I get it. Being stuck somewhere you don't belong, not knowing if you can get home. It sucks. But you're not a prisoner here, kid. You're a guest. And if there's a way to get you back to your dimension, we'll find it. Why? Amuro looked up. Why help me? What do you gain? Because it's the right thing to do, Daniel said simply. And because we've all been lost before. The Stargate brought us together, people from different backgrounds, different perspectives. If it brought you here, maybe there's a reason. A reason? Amuro's laugh was bitter. I'm a weapon, Dr. Jackson. A pilot designed to kill efficiently. What possible reason could justify pulling me away from a war my people are losing? TLC spoke from his position by the door, his deep voice carrying unexpected weight. Perhaps you were meant to learn that warriors may serve purposes beyond war. Or perhaps your presence here serves a purpose we have yet to understand. The universe is vast, Amuro Ray. Its patterns exceed mortal comprehension. Before Amuro could respond, alarms blared through the facility. Unscheduled off-world activation. The announcement echoed from speakers. The team moved immediately, O'Neill and TLC heading for the door, Carter grabbing her tablet. Amuro stood, uncertain whether to follow or stay, but his new type senses were already screaming warning. Something was coming through the Stargate. Something that felt wrong, twisted, hostile. Stay here, O'Neill ordered, but Amuro was already moving. If something's attacking, you might need the Gundam. Kid, we don't even have it fully assembled yet. The core fighter is functional. I can provide air support if necessary. Amuro was already running for the hangar bay. Behind him, he heard O'Neill curse and follow. In the gate room, the Stargate's event horizon shimmered. Through the observation window, Amuro saw soldiers taking defensive positions, weapons trained on the portal. Then the first figure emerged, golden armor, glowing eyes, carrying a staff weapon that looked more ornamental than practical. Jaffa! Someone shouted. More armored warriors poured through, and the gate room erupted in gunfire. Amuro's hand found the hangar bay controls. The core fighter sat on the deck, ready for launch. He could help. He could fight. It was what he was trained for, what he was built for. But O'Neill's hand caught his shoulder. "Stand down, Lieutenant. This isn't your fight. People are dying. And we've got protocols for this." O'Neill's voice was firm but not unkind. "Watch. Learn. See how we handle things here before you jump into a combat situation you don't understand." On the monitors, the Jaffa assault faltered against concentrated fire. The iris slammed shut, cutting off reinforcements. In 90 seconds, it was over. "See?" O'Neill said. "We've got this. But I appreciate the instinct. Shows you've got the right priorities." Amuro stared at the aftermath. Fast, efficient, professional. These soldiers knew their business. But he'd also felt something during the assault, a presence behind the Jaffa, watching through their eyes. Something ancient and hungry and intelligent. What were those things, he asked quietly. Jaffa. Enslaved warriors who serve the Goa'uld. O'Neill's expression was grim. "Which means a system lord knows about you now. And trust me, kid, that's not good news." In the observation room, General Hammond was already barking orders. Enhanced security protocols, off-world teams recalled, intelligence analysis on why a Goa'uld would probe their defenses now. But Amuro's new type senses told him the truth. They hadn't been probing. They'd been looking. And they'd found what they were searching for. Him. And the Gundam. The briefing room felt smaller with tension filling it. General Hammond stood at the head of the table, hands clasped behind his back, while intelligence photos from the Jaffa incursion scattered across the surface. Amiro sat between Carter and Daniel, acutely aware of every eye in the room tracking his movements. "The attack on the gate room was coordinated," Hammond said. 15 Jaffa, heavy weapons, no attempt at negotiation. Major Carter, analysis. Carter pulled up data on the wall screen. The Jaffa were equipped with standard staff weapons and Goa'uld armor, but their approach was unusual. They weren't trying to establish a beachhead, they sent MALP through first, likely scanning for specific energy signatures. Then they attacked the moment our iris opened to retrieve the probe. "Looking for something," O'Neill said. "Or someone. The timing is not coincidental," TLC added. A system lord would not waste resources on a blind assault against Tauri defenses. They sought intelligence. All eyes turned to Amuro. "You think they were looking for me?" Amuro kept his voice steady despite the unease crawling up his spine. "How would they even know I'm here?" "The Minovsky reactor," Carter said apologetically. "It puts out a unique energy signature, one that we detected from Earth orbit when you arrived on P3X-774. If the Goa'uld have monitoring satellites in this system, and they do, they would have detected the same anomaly." "Wonderful." O'Neill leaned back in his chair. "So every snakehead with a telescope now knows we've got a shiny new toy. That'll make them curious." "More than curious, Colonel." Hammond's expression was grave. "Intelligence suggests this probe originated from territory controlled by System Lord U. One of the oldest and most powerful Goa'uld, and notably more rational than most of his kind. If U is interested in Lieutenant Ray's technology, he'll want it for himself," Daniel finished. "The Goa'uld are obsessed with power and advanced weapons. A mobile suit like the Gundam would be incredibly valuable to them, either to use or to prevent their rivals from obtaining." Amuro's hands clenched under the table. This was exactly what he'd feared. The Gundam falling into the wrong hands, becoming a prize in someone else's war. What would they do if they captured it? The mobile suit, I mean. "Study it, reverse engineer the technology, mass-produce weapons based on its design," Carter said. "Or force you to pilot it for them." We didn't pull you out of another dimension just to let some megalomaniacal snake use you as a puppet. Then what do we do? Amuro asked. If this system lord you knows I'm here, he'll keep probing. Eventually, he'll find a way in. We prepare, Hammond said. And we show him that Earth isn't an easy target. Colonel O'Neill, I want SG-1 ready for rapid deployment. If he makes a move, we need to respond immediately. Major Carter, work with Lieutenant Ray to get that mobile suit fully operational. If we need to demonstrate strength, the Gundam might be our best deterrent. Sir, Amuro interrupted, with respect, the Gundam isn't meant to be a deterrent. It's a combat platform. If you're planning to use it defensively. I'm planning to keep you and your machine out of Goa'uld hands, Hammond said firmly. Whether that means hiding you, defending you, or demonstrating that you're more trouble than you're worth. Major Carter tells me your mobile suit can operate in space. Is that correct? Yes, sir. The Gundam was designed for zero-gravity combat. Thrusters provide 3-axis maneuvering, and the beam weapons are optimized for vacuum engagement. Hammond nodded. Then if it comes to it, we may need you in orbit. The Goa'uld operate primarily from capital ships, HOTACs, massive pyramid vessels with shields and heavy weapons. Our orbital defenses are limited. Having a mobile weapons platform that can operate in that environment would be invaluable. You're talking about ship-to-ship combat. Amuro's mind raced through tactical scenarios. I've engaged warships before, but Zeon vessels are different from what you're describing. What kind of capabilities do these HOTACs have? Staff cannons, shields powered by Naquata reactors, ring transporters for boarding actions. Carter pulled up schematics. They're slow and not particularly maneuverable, but they're heavily armored and their weapons can devastate planetary surfaces. A single HOTAC destroyed a Russian submarine with one shot from orbit. Amuro studied the schematics. Massive, pyramid-shaped, bristling with weapons. Nothing like the sleek Mazai-class cruisers or Zanzibar-class carriers he'd fought in the Earth sphere. The Gundam's beam rifle should be able to penetrate their shields with sustained fire. But I'd need to close to effective range, and if they have point defense systems. They don't, O'Neill said. The Goa'uld aren't used to single-fighter threats. Their tactics are all about big ships shooting at other big ships. A small, highly maneuverable target like your mobile suit would be outside their tactical doctrine. Exploiting enemy doctrine is standard mobile suit tactics, Amuro said. His pulse quickened, not with fear, but with the familiar pre-combat focus that had kept him alive through the 1-year war. But I'd need support. Ammunition resupply, emergency extraction if the Gundam takes critical damage, intelligence on enemy positions and movements. We can provide that, Carter said. The Prometheus is our primary space vessel, BC-303 class, equipped with Asgard transporters and railguns. We could use her as a mobile base for your operations. When you say operations, Daniel interjected carefully, you're talking about Amuro engaging in active combat. He's 16 years old. Are we really planning to send him into battle? The room shifted uncomfortably. Amuro felt Carter's sympathy, O'Neill's resigned pragmatism, Hammond's discomfort with necessity. Dar. Jackson, Amuro said quietly, I appreciate the concern. But I've been in combat since the war started. The Gundam is my responsibility, and if the alternative is letting these Goa'uld take it, I'll fight. That's what I do. That's what you were forced to do, Daniel corrected. There's a difference. Maybe in your universe. Amuro met his eyes. In mine, child soldiers are reality. The Federation didn't have enough trained pilots after Zeon's initial attacks. Kids like me ended up in cockpits because we were there and someone had to fight. I don't like it either, Dr. Jackson. But it's the situation we're in. Hammond cleared his throat. The decision is made. Lieutenant Ray, you'll work with Major Carter to get the Gundam combat ready. You're not under orders, you're a foreign national from an alternate dimension, which puts you outside our chain of command. But if you're willing to defend this facility and Earth against Goa'uld aggression, we'll provide whatever support you need. Understood, sir. Amiro felt the weight of familiar responsibility settling onto his shoulders. Another war, another enemy, another fight for survival. At least this time he wasn't alone. One more thing, Hammond added. Colonel Simmons has filed a formal complaint about your presence here. The NID is pushing for your transfer to Area 514, Comprehensive Evaluation. I've denied the request, but expect continued pressure from that quarter. Let them complain, O'Neill said. The kid's under SGC protection. If the NID wants him, they can go through proper channels, which means paperwork that'll take months. Bureaucracy as a weapon, Amuro said. I like it. Welcome to the military, Lieutenant. O'Neill grinned. Where shooting the enemy is only half the battle. The other half is filling out forms about shooting the enemy. The briefing ended, and as the room cleared, Amuro found himself walking with Daniel back toward the hangar bay. The archaeologist had been quiet during the tactical discussion, but his concern was palpable. You don't approve, Amuro said. It wasn't a question. I don't approve of any child being put in combat situations, Daniel said carefully. But I also understand that you're not a child in the conventional sense. You're a soldier with combat experience, making informed decisions about risk. It's just hard to reconcile. My mother used to say I grew up too fast. Amuro's voice was distant. That the war stole my childhood. She wasn't wrong. But standing around wishing things were different won't change what I am now. They entered the hangar bay, where the Gundam stood in full assembly now, towering 18 meters above the deck. Technicians swarmed around it, running diagnostic cables, setting up monitoring equipment. Carter directed operations from a mobile workstation, her excitement barely contained. It's magnificent, she called as they approached. The articulation, the power distribution, the weapons integration, whoever designed this was a genius. Tem Ray, Amuro said. My father. He led the mobile suit development project for the Earth Federation. The Gundam was his masterpiece. His voice caught. I don't even know if he survived the war. Carter's expression softened. I'm sorry. War separates families. It's one of the worst things about it. She pulled up a holographic display. I've been analyzing the Minovsky reactor. The physics are fascinating. These particles actually create a disruptive field that interferes with electromagnetic propagation. In theory, if we could replicate that technology, you could blind enemy sensors, Amuro finished. That's exactly what we use it for. Minovsky particle density makes radar and radio useless in combat zones. Forces mobile suits into visual range engagements where pilot skill matters more than technology. Which is why you're so dangerous, O'Neill said, joining them. He looked up at the Gundam with professional assessment. Carter, how long until this thing is combat ready? The Gundam is already combat ready, Amuro said. I just need to run startup procedures and verify all systems are operational after transport. 20 minutes, maybe 30. Do it. O'Neill's tone shifted to combat mode. General Hammond wants a demonstration. Show us what this mobile suit can do. 30 minutes later, Amuro sat in the Gundam's cockpit, fingers dancing across familiar controls. The panoramic display lit up, showing the massive underground hangar from 18 meters up. Reactor output nominal. Weapons systems green. Thrusters charged. All systems operational. Amuro to SGC control, he said into the comm system. RX-78-2 Gundam is hot. Ready for demonstration on your mark. Copy that, Lieutenant. Hammond's voice came through clearly. The Minovsky particle emission was dialed down to minimum, allowing radio communication. You're cleared for limited mobility demonstration. Do not activate weapon systems inside the hangar. We've set up a firing range on level 30 for weapons testing. Understood. Amuro took a breath, feeling the familiar connection between pilot and machine. The Gundam responded to his thoughts almost before his hands moved controls. Nu-type compatible interface translating intention into action. He took one step forward. 18 meters and 43 tons moved with precision that made watching technicians gasp. Another step. The mobile suit's feet impacted concrete with controlled force, leaving shallow impressions but no structural damage. Articulation looks good, Carter reported. Movement is fluid, almost organic. How are you controlling it? Combination of manual controls and neural interface, Amuro explained, walking the Gundam in a slow circle. The learning computer adapts to my brainwave patterns, anticipating inputs and refining responses. After months of combat, the Gundam knows how I think. He demonstrated, raising the shield in a defensive posture, drawing a beam saber and activating it. The brilliant pink energy blade hummed to life, casting strange shadows across the hangar. Tech scrambled backward instinctively. That's a plasma weapon? O'Neill asked over comm. Minovsky particle blade contained by an eye field. Temperature exceeds 10,000 degrees. It'll cut through most armor like tissue paper. Amuro deactivated the saber and holstered it. The beam rifle is more dangerous, though. Want to see? Not in my hangar, Hammond said dryly. Proceed to level 30. We've cleared a firing range. The Gundam moved through SGC's corridors with surprising grace, ducking through reinforced blast doors designed for vehicle access. On level 30, a massive chamber had been converted into a testing ground, reinforced walls, energy barriers, and a series of armored targets at varying distances. Amuro raised the beam rifle, feeling the weapon's familiar weight. Through his new type senses, he could feel the targeting computer integrating with his awareness, but he didn't need it. Years of combat had honed his instincts to the point where the rifle felt like an extension of his body. Engaging Target 1, he announced. The beam rifle fired. Brilliant green-white energy lanced across the chamber, striking the first target dead center. The armored plate, designed to withstand staff weapon blasts, vaporized instantly, leaving a perfectly circular hole glowing at the edges. Jesus, O'Neill breathed. Amuro pivoted, tracking and firing in rapid succession. Each shot found its mark with mechanical precision. 6 targets, 6 hits, all within 3 seconds. The beam rifle's magazine display showed 15 rounds remaining out of 20. That's enough, Hammond said. Stand down, Lieutenant. I think we've seen what we needed to see. Amuro powered down weapons and returned the Gundam to standby mode. Through the observation window, he could see the gathered officers and technicians staring with expressions ranging from awe to fear. So, O'Neill said as Amuro climbed down from the cockpit, that's a mobile suit. That's a mobile suit. Amuro felt exhausted suddenly, adrenaline crash hitting hard. In actual combat, multiply that by however many units are on the field. Then add in zero-gravity maneuvering, electronic warfare from Minovsky interference, and ammunition constraints. It's chaos. Controlled chaos, Carter said, still reviewing sensor data. Your accuracy was perfect. Every shot hit exactly where you intended. I've had practice. Amuro didn't mention how much of that practice involved shooting at other teenagers piloting Zaku's. How many of them he'd killed. How their deaths still haunted him. Daniel approached with a water bottle, which Amuro accepted gratefully. That was impressive and terrifying in equal measure. I can see why the Goa'uld would want this technology. Which brings us to our next problem, Hammond said, joining them. System Lord now knows we have something valuable. He'll make a move, the question is when and how. Then we prepare for it, Amuro said. And when he comes, we show him exactly why the Gundam isn't something he wants to fight. Above them, the mobile suit stood silent, a monument to war from another dimension. A weapon designed for one conflict now standing ready for another. Amuro just hoped he was ready for what came next. The call came at 0300 hours. Amiro jolted awake in his VIP quarters, new type senses screaming warning before the klaxon even finished its first blare. Unscheduled off-world activation. All personnel to battle stations. He was moving before conscious thought caught up, pulling on his pilot suit with practiced efficiency. The corridor outside erupted with running soldiers, and Amuro fell in with the flow toward the gate room. His security detail shouted something about staying in quarters, but he ignored them. If something was coming through that gate, he needed to be ready. The control room was organized chaos. Hammond stood at the center, receiving reports from multiple stations simultaneously. O'Neill and TLC were already geared up, weapons ready. Carter worked her console with focused intensity. Not the confident stride of a planned arrival, this was someone running. The man collapsed on the ramp as the wormhole shut down behind him, and medical teams rushed forward. "Dad!" Carter vaulted down the stairs, reaching him as he struggled to sit up. Amiro recognized him from the personnel files he'd been studying. Jacob Carter, USAF General, retired. And something else, based on the brief golden glow in his eyes. RX. One of those symbiote-host partnerships Carter had mentioned. Sam. Jacob's voice carried an undertone that suggested two people speaking at once. "We have a problem. He knows about the dimensional traveler. More than that, he knows what the mobile suit is capable of. Someone leaked intelligence." The room went cold. "Impossible," Hammond said. "Information about Lieutenant Ray is classified at the highest levels. Only essential personnel have been briefed. Then you have a security breach." Jacob accepted help standing, though he waved off the medics. Selmac accessed RX intelligence networks. "You has been quietly mobilizing forces for 3 days. 2 HOTACs, support vessels, and his personal mothership. He's planning something big. An assault on Earth?" O'Neill's grip tightened on his P-90. "We don't know. But Selmac believes you is moving to secure the mobile suit before other system lords learn of its existence. If he can obtain that technology," Jacob trailed off, but everyone understood. "A Goa'uld with mobile suit capabilities would shift the balance of power catastrophically." Amuro stepped forward. "How much does he know?" "About the Gundam's capabilities, I mean." Jacob turned, seeing him for the first time. His eyes flickered gold again, the symbiote studying him. "You're the pilot. You're younger than I expected." The dual voice faded as Selmac withdrew. "You has technical specifications, incomplete but detailed enough. Beam weaponry, advanced armor, the Minovsky reactor. He doesn't understand the physics, but he recognizes military superiority when he sees it." "How did he get that information?" Carter demanded. "We've been locked down since Lieutenant Ray arrived." "The NID," Daniel said quietly from his position near the briefing table. Everyone turned. Colonel Simmons was here 3 days ago. He had access to the hangar bay, saw the Gundam firsthand. If he filed reports through NID channels. "Those channels are compromised," Hammond finished grimly. "We've suspected the NID has security issues for months. If Goa'uld operatives have infiltrated their organization." He didn't need to complete the thought. "The trust," O'Neill spat. "Those bastards have been selling out Earth since day one. If they gave you intel on the Gundam, then we're not just dealing with external threats," Amuro said. His new type awareness had been picking up undercurrents of deception around Simmons, but he'd attributed it to bureaucratic hostility. If there was actual betrayal involved. "What's Yu's next move?" "Unknown." Jacob moved to the briefing table, pulling up star charts. But TalkRA intelligence suggests he's positioning forces in this sector. Close enough to strike Earth, far enough to avoid early detection by Asgard monitoring satellites. If he moves quickly, he could be here in hours, Carter finished. Sir, we need to contact the Asgard. Get Thor's assistance. Already tried, Hammond said. The Asgard are engaged in operations against the replicators in the Ida galaxy. Thor can't respond to anything short of planetary annihilation. We're on our own. Silence fell across the control room. Amuro's tactical mind raced through scenarios. 2 Hotaks plus support vessels. Unknown troop complement. Enemy with incomplete but dangerous intelligence about the Gundam. Defending force, 1 undermanned SGC facility, limited orbital assets, and a single mobile suit designed for a different kind of war. We need to move the Gundam off-site, Simmons' voice cut through the room. The NID colonel stood in the doorway with 2 security personnel, his expression carefully neutral. Area 51 has better defensive capabilities. If you attacks here, you're not taking the mobile suit anywhere, O'Neill said flatly. This isn't a request, Colonel. National security is compromised by the NID, Hammond interrupted. Colonel Simmons, you filed reports about Lieutenant Ray through your organization's channels. Reports that somehow reached System Lord U. I'm confining you to quarters pending investigation. Simmons' carefully neutral expression cracked. You can't seriously believe I'm a security risk. General, I've served this country for 20 years. Security. Hammond's voice carried absolute authority. Escort Colonel Simmons to isolation quarters. No communications, no visitors. As Simmons was led away protesting, Amuro felt a piece of the puzzle click into place. The NID colonel's presence during the hangar demonstration. His unusual interest in technical specifications. The way his emotional signature had felt wrong to new type senses. Not Goa'uld possession, Amuro would have sensed that alien presence. But compromise? Manipulation? Definitely possible. So what's our play? O'Neill asked once Simmons was gone. Hammond studied the star chart. We can't evacuate the Gundam through the Stargate, it's too large. And if U is already moving, we don't have time to transport it conventionally. Which means we defend here or take the fight to him. Take the fight to him? Amuro looked up sharply. You mean launch a preemptive strike? The Prometheus is in Earth orbit, Carter said, understanding dawning. If we can intercept U's forces before they reach Earth, we control the engagement zone. Choose our battlefield instead of defending the mountain. And risk our only capital ship in a direct confrontation with multiple Hotaks. Daniel shook his head. That's suicide. Not if the Gundam provides tactical support, Jacob said. Selmac's voice bled through again. Mobile weapons platform, highly maneuverable, capable of operating in vacuum. It could exploit weaknesses in Hotak defenses that conventional vessels can't reach. All eyes turned to Amuro. It's possible, he said slowly, mind racing through tactical calculations. Hotaks are large, slow targets. The Gundam's thrusters provide 3-axis maneuvering in zero gravity. I can close to beam rifle range faster than their staff cannons can track. But I'd need intelligence, shield frequencies, weapons placement, engine vulnerabilities. The TalkRA have that information, Jacob confirmed. Hotak designs haven't changed significantly in millennia. We know their weak points. Then we have a plan. Hammond's decision was immediate, decisive. Major Carter, prepare the Prometheus for combat operations. Coordinate with Lieutenant Ray on Gundam deployment. Colonel O'Neill, SG-1 will accompany as boarding team. If we can disable U's shields, you'll gate directly to his bridge. Boarding action against a System Lord. O'Neill grinned. Now you're talking my language. This is insane, Daniel protested. We're planning an offensive military action based on intelligence we received 10 minutes ago. Shouldn't we consider diplomatic options? Try to negotiate with you. The Goa'uld don't negotiate, TLC said quietly. They conquer or they destroy. System Lord Yu is among the more rational of his kind, but he is still Goa'uld. If he perceives weakness, he will exploit it. TLC's right, Jacob added. You respect strength. If we demonstrate that the Gundam is more dangerous than it's worth, he might back down. But if we wait for him to attack Earth directly, thousands of people could die. Amuro felt the weight of decision pressing down. This wasn't his war. These weren't his people. The 1-year war, the Federation, Xi'an, all of it existed in another dimension he might never reach again. He could refuse. Stay out of this conflict entirely. But he'd seen what happened when good people stood aside and let tyrants act. He'd watched Side 7 burn. He'd seen the aftermath of colony drops and orbital bombardments. If this System Lord Yu was planning something similar. I'm in, Amuro said. But I need preparation time. The Gundams never operated in true deep space combat, only orbital engagements within the Earth sphere. If we're intercepting enemy vessels outside planetary gravity wells, I need to test maneuvering capabilities, verify life support can handle extended vacuum operations, and familiarize myself with enemy vessel layouts. You'll have 4 hours, Hammond said. Prometheus needs time to reach intercept coordinates anyway. Carter, work with Lieutenant Ray. Get him everything he needs. Yes, sir. Carter was already pulling up technical specifications. We'll use Asgard transporters to deploy the Gundam directly from Prometheus. You'll launch at optimal range for your beam weapons, engage targets of opportunity, and provide covering fire while we disable Yu's flagship. And if something goes wrong? Amuro asked quietly. O'Neill clapped his shoulder. Then we improvise. Welcome to SG-1, kid. We specialize in plans that go sideways. 4 hours later, Amuro floated in the Gundam's cockpit, staring at Earth through the panoramic monitor. The planet hung below like a blue-green jewel, so similar to the Earth he knew yet fundamentally different. No orbital colonies. No debris from the 1-year war. Just a pristine world that didn't know how lucky it was. Gundam, this is Prometheus Actual, Colonel Pendergast's voice came through the comm, we're approaching intercept coordinates. Enemy vessels detected on long-range sensors. 2 Hattacks, 3 support craft, and Yu's personal flagship. They're holding position at the coordinates TOC-RA intelligence predicted. Copy that, Prometheus. Amuro's hands moved across controls with practiced efficiency. RX-78-2 standing by for deployment. Reactor output at maximum. All weapons systems green. Carter's voice joined the channel. Amuro, we're reading unusual energy signatures from Yu's flagship. Could be advanced shields, could be weapon systems we haven't seen before. Be careful. Careful is my specialty, Major. Amuro allowed himself a tight smile. Or at least, it used to be before I started piloting giant robots into combat situations. You're doing great, she said, and Amuro heard genuine warmth beneath the professional tone. In 4 hours, Carter had become something close to a friend, another engineer soldier who understood the marriage of technology and necessity. All personnel, this is General Hammond. The SGC commander's voice carried across all channels. You're authorized to engage with extreme prejudice. Our mission is to demonstrate that Earth will not be intimidated, and that the technology Lieutenant Ray represents is not worth the cost of obtaining it. Make them understand that message. Hammond out. Inspiring, O'Neill commented. Not exactly Patton, but I'll take it. SG-1 is go for boarding action. Just get those shields down, Amuro. No pressure, Amuro muttered. Deploying in 3, 2, 1, mark. The Asgard transporter activated, and the Gundam materialized in hard vacuum. For a heartbeat, Amuro experienced the pure silence of space, no air, no sound, just the infinite black punctuated by stars. Then his thrusters fired, and the mobile suit surged forward. Ahead, Yu's fleet hung in space like ancient pyramids suspended by invisible threads. The Hattacks were exactly as described, massive, ornate, bristling with weapons that glowed with the sickly green of Goa'uld technology. And they were targeting him. Multiple locks detected. Amuro's training kicked in immediately. He slammed the thruster controls, sending the Gundam into a spinning dive that no capital ship could hope to track. Staff cannon fire lanced through space where he'd been moments before. "They're not happy to see me," Amuro reported, pulse pounding with familiar combat adrenaline. "Engaging targets. Prometheus, stay clear of my firing line." He raised the beam rifle, let his new type senses guide targeting, and fired. The megaparticle beam crossed vacuum at near light speed, striking the nearest Hattack's shields. Energy cascaded across the barrier in brilliant patterns, but held. Stronger than Xeon shields, then. He'd need sustained fire to penetrate. "Target shields holding," Carter reported. "But they're weakening. Keep up the pressure." Amuro fired again, then again, threading the needle between incoming staff cannon blasts. The Gundam danced through space with a grace that made the Hattack's weapons seem almost comical in their slowness. But there were so many of them, and eventually, probability would turn against him. A near miss scorched his shield, ablative coating vaporizing. Another blast grazed the Gundam's shoulder armor. Alarms screamed warnings. "Minor damage," Amuro reported through gritted teeth. "Still operational. Prometheus, I'm drawing their fire. Move in for boarding action." "Copy that." "We're," Pendergast's voice cut off as something massive powered up on Yu's flagship. The entire ship glowed with energy that made Amuro's new type senses scream. Not shields. Something worse. "That's a main weapon charging." Carter's voice held panic Amuro had never heard from her. "Planetary bombardment capacity. He's targeting Earth." Time seemed to slow. Amuro saw the calculations with crystal clarity: distance to flagship, beam rifle charge time, probability of penetrating shields before the weapon fired. The numbers didn't work. He couldn't stop it. Unless he got closer. "Prometheus, emergency transport." Amuro slammed the thrusters to maximum, accelerating directly toward Yu's flagship. "Beam me inside their shields." "That's suicide," O'Neill shouted. "The shields will tear you apart." "Then beam me through a weak point." "There has to be one." The Gundam screamed toward the massive pyramid, and Amuro felt his new type awareness expanding, reaching out, feeling the enemy ship's energy patterns like a living thing. There, a fluctuation near the hangar bay, shield cycling to allow fighter launch. "I've got it." Carter's genius matched his instinct. Locking onto hangar bay shield fluctuation. Transporting in 3, 2. The Asgard beam caught the Gundam mid-flight, and Amuro materialized inside Yu's flagship. Right in the middle of a hangar bay filled with death gliders and very surprised Jaffa. "Oh," Amuro said. This was a terrible idea. Then he drew both beam sabers and all hell broke loose. The hangar bay erupted in chaos. Jaffa warriors scattered as 18 meters of mobile suit materialized among their death gliders, beam sabers igniting with twin screams of superheated plasma. Amuro didn't give them time to organize a response. The Gundam moved with a fluidity that seemed impossible for something so massive. Left saber carved through a death glider's wing, the Goa'uld fighter exploding in a fireball that consumed 3 nearby Jaffa. Right saber swept low, bisecting support struts and sending a maintenance gantry crashing down onto scrambling warriors. "I'm inside," Amuro reported, pulse hammering as he processed tactical data faster than conscious thought. His new type awareness mapped the hangar. 43 Jaffa, 12 death gliders, multiple exit points, and somewhere beyond these walls, the superweapon charging to annihilate Earth. Prometheus, I need directions to that main weapon. Uploading schematic now, Carter's voice held barely controlled panic. You're 3 levels below the primary bombardment cannon. You need to reach the central shaft and climb, Amuro. There's no way the Gundam fits through those corridors. Staff weapon fire hammered the Gundam's armor. Amuro pivoted, raising his shield to deflect the concentrated barrage. Luna titanium held, but energy bleed-through heated the cockpit uncomfortably. More Jaffa were flooding in through blast doors, and the sheer volume of fire would eventually overwhelm even his shields. Then I'll make it fit. Amuro charged forward, using the Gundam's mass as a battering ram. The mobile suit crashed through the hangar's main entrance, tearing a Gundam-sized hole in bulkheads that screamed protest. Goa'uld architecture crumpled like tissue paper before Luna titanium and 43 tons of momentum. The corridor beyond was chaos, Jaffa warriors diving for cover, alarms shrieking, automated defenses swiveling to target him. Amuro didn't slow down. He carved through obstacles with beam sabers, leaving glowing metal and devastation in his wake. Energy signature increasing. Carter's warning cut through the combat haze. That weapon is at 60% charge. 2 minutes until firing threshold. Copy. Amuro found the central shaft, a massive vertical tunnel running through the Hatak's core. Too narrow for the Gundam to fit. Unless... Prometheus, what's the structural tolerance on these ships? What are you planning? O'Neill demanded. Something stupid. Amuro deactivated the beam sabers and holstered them, then raised the beam rifle. He fired point-blank into the shaft's walls, megaparticle beam chewing through Naquata-reinforced alloy. Once. Twice. 3 times. The shaft widened with each shot, glowing edges dripping molten metal. You're destabilizing the ship's structural integrity. Carter protested. That's the idea. Amuro fired the thrusters, lifting the Gundam into the now widened shaft. He rose through deck after deck, using the beam rifle to blast through any obstacle in his path. Behind him, secondary explosions rippled through damaged systems. His new type senses screamed warning. He twisted mid-flight as energy weapons tore through the space he'd occupied, automated defenses built into the shaft itself. Return fire from the beam rifle silenced them, but more kept appearing. 90% charge. Carter's voice. 45 seconds. The shaft opened into a massive chamber, the bombardment cannon's firing mechanism, a technological nightmare of crystalline focusing arrays and Naquata power conduits. At the chamber's center, a pulsing sphere of energy grew brighter with each passing second. Targeting Earth. Jaffa in specialized armor operated control stations around the weapon, and at the chamber's far end, a figure in elaborate golden armor watched through the observation window. Even through the distance, Amuro felt the presence, ancient, calculating, utterly inhuman despite the human host body. System Lord you. The weapon is armed. The Goa'uld's voice boomed through external speakers, layered with the resonance that marked symbiote possession. Your primitive machine cannot stop it, Tauri. Surrender the mobile suit's technology, and I will spare your world. Counteroffer, Amuro said, raising the beam rifle toward the energy sphere. Shut it down, or I blow us all to hell. Yu's eyes flared golden. You would not dare. The explosion would destroy you as well. I've been ready to die since the war started. Amuro's voice was ice. Have you? For 3 heartbeats, they stared at each other across the chamber, teenage pilot from another dimension and ancient alien tyrant. Amuro's finger tightened on the trigger, and his new type awareness showed him the cascade that would follow: beam rifle destabilizing the energy sphere, catastrophic reactor breach, the Hatak tearing itself apart from within. He wasn't bluffing. You saw it in his eyes. Jaffa, stand down. The System Lord's command was immediate. Cease firing procedures. The energy spheres pulsing slowed, began to dissipate. Amuro didn't lower the beam rifle. All the way, he said. Power down completely. Use expression twisted with rage and something else, respect. You are either exceptionally brave or exceptionally foolish, Tauri. Perhaps both. He gestured, and the weapon systems went dark. But do not think this ends here. I have seen what your machine can do. Others will see it too. You have painted a target on your world. Let them come. Amuro backed toward the shaft, keeping the beam rifle trained on you. They'll learn the same lesson you did. Earth doesn't surrender. Earth? You laughed, the sound carrying no humor. You are not even from this Earth, are you? I can sense it, something different about you. Wrong. Displaced. Yet you fight for them anyway. Amuro's new type senses prickled. How could you know that? Prometheus, I need emergency extraction, he called. Target is secure but situation is deteriorating. We can't get a lock through the shields. Carter's voice held frustration. You need to get outside the barrier. Working on it. Amuro fired his thrusters, dropping back into the shaft. Behind him, Yu's voice echoed. Run, little pilot. But remember, I know what you are now. And I will have that technology, one way or another. The Gundam plummeted through the shaft, using thruster bursts to slow descent. Amuro's mind raced. You had sensed something about his dimensional origin. How? Goa'uld were advanced, but dimensional physics shouldn't be within their understanding. The Gundam burst back into the hangar bay, where organized Jaffa forces now waited. Staff weapons opened fire in devastating concentration. Alarms screamed as multiple systems took damage. The shield took a direct hit and fractured, composite armor beneath showing scorch marks. Taking heavy fire. Amuro reported, combat instincts overriding analysis. I need that extraction now. Hangar bay shields are down for Death Glider launch. Carter's voice. Go, go, go. Amuro slammed the thrusters to maximum, the Gundam rocketing toward the hangar's atmospheric barrier. Staff weapon fire chased him, and he felt one blast penetrate armor near the reactor housing. Warning lights blazed red. Then he was through, tumbling into hard vacuum, alarms screaming about reactor containment breach. Prometheus, emergency beam out. O'Neill's command cut through the chaos. The Asgard transporter caught him, and the Gundam materialized in Prometheus's hangar bay in a shower of sparks and venting coolant. Amuro killed the thrusters, hands shaking on controls as adrenaline crashed. Did it work? He managed. Yu's fleet is withdrawing, Pendergast reported from the bridge. All vessels jumping to hyperspace. Whatever you said to him, it worked. Amuro slumped in the cockpit seat, exhaustion hitting like a physical blow. Through the panoramic monitor, he watched Yu's flagship disappear in a flash of hyperspace window, taking the threat with it. For now. Lieutenant Ray, this is General Hammond. The SGC commander's voice carried carefully controlled relief. Outstanding work. You've probably just prevented planetary bombardment. How's the Gundam? Amuro scanned the damage report scrolling across his displays. Reactor containment is holding, but I've got damage to the cooling system, armor breaches on the left arm and torso, and the shield is compromised. Nothing catastrophic, but I need repairs before the next engagement. There won't be a next engagement today. Hammond's tone brooked no argument. You've done enough. Come home, son. Home. The word hit unexpectedly hard. This wasn't home, couldn't be home. Home was Side 7, White Base, the Federation forces scattered across the Earth sphere fighting Zeon. Home was another dimension entirely. But these people had welcomed him. Trusted him with a mission that could have ended in planetary annihilation. Treated him like a soldier instead of a weapon or a curiosity. Maybe home was more flexible than he'd thought. Copy that, General. Amuro initiated shutdown procedures, watching systems power down in sequence. RX-78-2 going to standby mode. Request recovery team to assess damage. Carter's voice came through his personal comm, warm with relief. You scared the hell out of us, you know that. Beaming inside their shields, threatening to blow yourself up, that was insane. Insane is my specialty lately, Amiro said, managing a weak smile. Besides, I learned from the best. O'Neill would have done the same thing. Damn right I would have. The colonel's voice held grudging approval. Kid, you've got a future in this organization if you want it. That was some ace pilot stuff. Thanks. Amuro popped the cockpit canopy, breathing recycled Prometheus air that tasted like victory and exhaustion. But let's maybe not make it a habit. My heart can only take so much. As recovery crews swarmed the damaged Gundam, Amuro climbed down to the hangar deck. His legs barely held him, muscles trembling from sustained combat stress. Daniel appeared with a water bottle and protein bar, which Amuro accepted gratefully. You did it, Daniel said simply. Saved Earth. Again, technically, since you're not from here. Don't remind me. Amuro drank deeply, savoring the cold water. Is it always like this? One crisis after another, each one potentially world-ending? Pretty much. Daniel smiled sympathetically. Welcome to life with the Stargate program. But hey, at least it's never boring. TLC approached, his expression carrying approval that seemed significant coming from the stoic Jaffa. You have proven yourself a warrior of honor, Amuro Ray. Your actions today will be remembered. I just did what needed doing. Amuro looked back at the Gundam, seeing the battle damage in harsh hangar lighting. But TLC. System Lord you. He said something about sensing I was different. Wrong. How could he know about the dimensional displacement? TLC's expression darkened. The Goa'uld possessed knowledge from countless stolen hosts. Perhaps one carried understanding of such matters. Or perhaps, he paused. The symbiotes themselves perceive reality differently than humans. They sense things we cannot. Great. Amuro rubbed his face. So now you knows I'm from another dimension and wants the Gundam. That's just perfect. He wants it, O'Neill said, joining them, but he also learned it's more trouble than it's worth. You made sure of that. That's the point of deterrence, make the cost higher than the benefit. For how long? Amuro asked quietly. He said others would come. He's right. The Gundam's too valuable. Eventually, someone will try again. Then we'll deal with them when they do. Hammond's voice carried absolute certainty as he appeared via viewscreen from SGC. Lieutenant, you've more than proven yourself today. As far as I'm concerned, you're part of this command now. Not as a prisoner or a guest, but as an operator. If you're willing. Amuro looked at the faces around him, Carter's scientific enthusiasm, O'Neill's gruff approval, Daniel's genuine concern, TLC's warrior respect. People who'd trusted him with their lives, their planet, their future. In the universal century, he'd been thrust into war without choice. Here, he was being offered something different. Not conscription, but invitation. Not obligation, but opportunity. I'm willing, Amuro said. At least until we find a way to send me home. These Goa'uld are too much like Zeon, tyrants who think might makes right. Someone needs to stand against that. Then it's settled. Hammond smiled. Welcome to Earth's defense, Lieutenant. SG-1, escort him back to base. We've got debriefings, damage assessments, and about 1,000 forms to fill out. But first, his tone softened. Get some rest. All of you. You've earned it. As Prometheus began its burn back toward Earth, Amuro stood at the observation port, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, across dimensions he barely understood, his Earth continued its war. White Base fought on without him. The Federation struggled against Xeon without the Gundam. He'd find his way back eventually. Had to believe that. But until then, this Earth needed defending. And he was a soldier. It was what he knew how to be. 2 weeks after the confrontation with System Lord U, Amuro found himself in a place he'd never expected, sitting cross-legged in SGC's meditation room with TLC, trying to understand what the Jaffa called Kalnorim. You must quiet the conscious mind, TLC said, his deep voice carrying the patience of someone who'd explained this hundreds of times. Allow your awareness to expand beyond immediate perception. The Jaffa use this technique to commune with our symbiotes. You seek something similar, understanding of your new type abilities. Amuro opened one eye. I'm not sure it works the same way. New types don't meditate to access their abilities. It just happens. Usually in combat. All abilities require discipline to master. TLC's candlelit face remained serene. You sense emotion, perceive spatial relationships beyond normal human capacity, and demonstrate precognition in battle. These are not random gifts. They are tools requiring refinement. It was true. Since arriving in this dimension, Amuro's new type abilities had intensified. He could sense emotional signatures throughout the entire SGC facility, Carter's focused excitement in the lab, O'Neill's dry amusement in the briefing room, Daniel's persistent curiosity in the archives. But the sensitivity was becoming overwhelming, like radio static he couldn't tune out. Close your eyes, TLC instructed. Breathe. Feel the mountain around you, the life within it. Do not force awareness. Simply allow it. Amuro tried. Closed his eyes, regulated breathing, let his new type senses expand. Pain lanced through his skull. For an instant, he felt something vast and cold and utterly inhuman reaching back, observing him through dimensions he couldn't name. Ancient. Powerful. Curious. He gasped, eyes snapping open. What was that? TLC's expression shifted to concern. What did you perceive? Something in the Stargate. Or through it. Like, Amuro struggled for words. Like the gate network itself is alive somehow. Watching. The ancients built the Stargates, TLC said slowly. Perhaps you sensed residual consciousness in their technology. Or perhaps your abilities allow you to perceive the quantum connections between gates across space. Before Amuro could respond, alarms blared through the facility. Unscheduled off-world activation. General Hammond to the control room, Priority 1. They ran. By the time they reached the gate room, the situation was already spiraling. The Stargate's event horizon shimmered, and through it stepped a woman Amuro had never seen, dark hair, confident bearing, elaborate robes that screamed Goa'uld aristocracy. But the energy signature was wrong. Not Goa'uld. Something else. Hold your fire. Hammond's voice carried through the control room. I know her. Stand down. O'Neill appeared at Amuro's shoulder, P-90 lowered but ready. That's Valla Mal-Doran. Former host to a Goa'uld named Katesh, current pain in our collective ass. What's she doing here? The woman, Valla, strode down the ramp with theatrical flair, then collapsed. Medical teams rushed forward as she struggled to speak. You, is dead, she gasped. Murdered. And they're blaming Earth. The briefing room erupted in controlled chaos. Valla sat at the table, recovered enough to deliver her report with characteristic dramatic emphasis. Amuro listened, his tactical mind processing implications faster than conversation moved. System Lord you was assassinated 3 days ago, Valla explained, accepting coffee from Daniel with a smile that suggested complicated history. Poisoned during a gathering of System Lords. Very public, very messy. And somehow, evidence points to Earth's involvement. That's impossible, Carter protested. We haven't sent any teams to Goa'uld territory since the U incident. And we certainly didn't assassinate anyone. I know that. You know that. Valla's expression turned serious. But the System Lords don't know that. Or more accurately, they don't care. U's death creates a power vacuum. Several System Lords are positioning to claim his territory and assets. They need a scapegoat, and Earth just became convenient. Let me guess, O'Neill said. They're planning retaliation. Worse. They're planning a coordinated attack. Baal, Nerdy, and Kali have formed a temporary alliance. 3 System Lords, 9 Hotaks, and enough ground forces to level a continent. Valla pulled out a data crystal. I acquired intelligence on their attack plan. They're targeting Earth directly, and they want the mobile suit technology before they destroy you. The room went silent. Amuro felt every eye turn toward him. The Gundam, he said quietly. This is about the Gundam. Partially. Valla studied him with unnerving intensity. But it's also about making an example. Earth has been a thorn in the Goa'uld side for years. Destroying System Lords, liberating worlds, allying with the Asgard. You're dangerous because you give other humans hope. The mobile suit just gave them an excuse to move against you collectively. Hammond's jaw tightened. When? 72 hours. They're mobilizing now. Valla slid the crystal across the table. This contains fleet positions, attack vectors, and troop deployments. Everything I could steal before running. Why help us? Daniel asked the question everyone was thinking. You're not exactly known for altruism, Valla. Her expression flickered with something genuine. Because I was Goa'uld property once. I know what they do to people, to entire worlds. And because, she looked at Amuro. I've seen what happens when the powerful crush anyone who threatens them. Someone needs to stand against that. Might as well be you lot. Carter was already analyzing the crystal's data. 3 Hotaks per System Lord, approaching from different vectors. They're planning a simultaneous 3-pronged assault. Our orbital defenses can't handle that kind of coordinated attack. Then we don't fight them in orbit, O'Neill said. We take the fight somewhere else. Where? Hammond demanded. Colonel, we have exactly 1 combat-capable spacecraft and 1 mobile suit. Against 9 Hotaks, that's suicide. Not if we level the playing field. O'Neill turned to Amuro. Kid, how would you handle a 9-on-1 fight in your universe? Amuro thought back to battles against overwhelming Xeon forces. Change the battlefield. Force them to fight on your terms, not theirs. Use terrain, exploit weaknesses, never let them bring their full strength to bear simultaneously. Exactly. O'Neill pulled up a star chart. The Goa'uld are expecting us to defend Earth. So we don't. We hit them before they reach our solar system, in a location that gives us tactical advantage. What location? Carter asked. There. TLC pointed at a specific coordinate. The Rhinoth asteroid field. Dense debris, limited maneuvering space, Minovsky particles would be exceptionally effective. Amuro leaned forward, understanding dawning. The asteroids provide cover. Hotaks are too large to maneuver effectively in tight spaces, but the Gundam isn't. If I use the field as terrain. You become the hunter, they become the prey, Carter finished. But we'd need to draw them there. Make them think we're vulnerable. A trap. Hammond considered this. It's risky. If they see through it. They won't, Valla interrupted. Goa'uld arrogance is legendary. If you appear weakened, desperate, they'll pursue. Especially if they think they can capture the mobile suit intact. So we bait them. Daniel's expression showed he hated the idea but understood its necessity. Use Amuro and the Gundam as bait to draw 3 system lords into an ambush. Not just me. Amuro's tactical mind was racing now, seeing the full picture. Prometheus provides fire support and transport. SG teams can gate to key positions in the asteroid field, set up ambush points with heavy weapons. If we coordinate perfectly. It's still suicide, Hammond said flatly. We're talking about putting our most valuable assets directly in harm's way against overwhelming force. It's already suicide if they reach Earth, O'Neill countered. At least this way we control the engagement. And General? The kid's right. This is what the Gundam was designed for. Turning impossible odds into survivable battles. Amiro felt the weight of expectation pressing down. 2 weeks ago, he'd been a lost dimensional refugee. Now Earth's defense apparently hinged on him and the mobile suit from another reality. I need 48 hours, he said. The Gundam took damage in the U engagement. Carter's been helping with repairs, but if we're going against 9 Hotaks, I need every system at peak efficiency. Plus ammunition reserves. I'm down to 60% on beam rifle charges. We can synthesize more, Carter said immediately. I've been studying the Minovsky particle containment system. It's complicated, but with our Naquata reactor technology and some creative engineering. Make it work, Hammond ordered. 48 hours, people. Colonel O'Neill, coordinate with Valla on System Lord fleet movements. Major Carter, get that mobile suit combat ready. Dar. Jackson, find us any ancient technology that might give us an edge. TLC, I want tactical analysis on Jaffa troop deployments. He paused. And someone contact the talk RA. If we're going to war, we need every ally we can get. The room emptied rapidly, everyone moving to their assignments. Amuro started to follow, but Valla's voice stopped him. Lieutenant Ray? A word? He turned. Up close, Valla's eyes held ancient weariness that belied her apparent age. Years as a Goa'uld host, probably. He knew that look, the exhaustion of survivors who'd seen too much. You're different from them, she said quietly. I can sense it. Not quite human. Or not human from here, anyway. What are you really? Amuro hesitated, but his new type senses read genuine curiosity, not threat. I'm from another Earth. Another dimension. The spatial anomaly that brought me here involved the Stargate somehow. Another Earth. Valla's smile was sad. That explains the foreignness I feel. You don't belong here, do you? Yet you're fighting for this world anyway. Someone has to. Amuro met her eyes. And I've seen what happens when tyrants go unopposed. Better to stand and fight. Even if it kills you. I've been ready to die since the war started. The words came automatically, but saying them aloud made Amuro realize how true they were. How tired he was of fighting. At least this time it'll be for something I chose, not something I was forced into. Valla's expression shifted, understanding, perhaps, or recognition. You're very young to be so resigned to death, Amuro Ray. War ages you fast. Yes. She touched his shoulder briefly. It does. But try not to die in the asteroid field, would you? I'd like to see what you become if you survive this. She left, leaving Amuro alone with the star chart showing the Rhinoth asteroid field. In 48 hours, he'd fight 9 system lords in the most desperate battle of his life. And if he failed, Earth would burn. Just like Side 7. Just like so many colonies in the 1-year war. He wouldn't let that happen. Couldn't let that happen. Even if it meant becoming the weapon everyone needed him to be. In the hangar bay, the Gundam stood partially disassembled, Carter's engineering team working around the clock to repair combat damage and upgrade systems. Amuro descended to the deck, running his hands over Luna titanium plating. "We'll get through this," he whispered to the mobile suit, knowing how insane it sounded. "We always do." Above, through the mountain, stars turned in patterns alien to his home Earth. But the stars themselves were familiar, same constellations, same universe. Just different choices, different histories. Maybe that was enough. Maybe fighting for this Earth didn't require it to be his Earth. Just required believing some things were worth protecting, regardless of dimension. Amuro retrieved his pilot suit from storage and began preparations. 48 hours until battle. He'd be ready. The Rhinoth asteroid field hung in space like a graveyard of shattered worlds. Millions of rocks ranging from pebble size to mountain scale drifted in chaotic orbits, the remnants of a planet torn apart by tidal forces eons ago. Perfect terrain for an ambush. Perfect place to die. Amuro floated the Gundam through the debris field, testing maneuvering thrusters at minimal output. The mobile suit responded beautifully. Carter's repairs had restored full functionality, and the upgraded Minovsky reactor purred with 20% more output than original specifications. Earth's Naquadah technology integrated with Universal Century engineering in ways that shouldn't work but somehow did. RX-78-2 to Prometheus, Amuro reported over encrypted comm, positioning complete. I'm stationed in Grid 7 Alpha, using asteroid cluster for concealment. Reactor output dialed to minimum to reduce detection profile. Copy that, Gundam. Pendergast's voice carried military calm that didn't quite hide underlying tension. SG teams are in position across the field. Major Carter's rigged several asteroids with Naquadah-enhanced explosives. When the System Lords arrive, we'll make them think they're chasing a wounded animal. And hope they don't realize it's a trap until it's too late, O'Neill added from his position on Asteroid 7 Charlie. Kid, you sure about this? Once they spot you, you're going to have 9 Hattacks worth of attention. That's the plan, Colonel. Amuro checked weapons status for the 5th time. Beam rifle at full charge, both beam sabers ready, Vulcan guns loaded, shield intact. Every system green. I draw them in, you hit them from ambush positions, Prometheus provides covering fire. Simple. Simple, Daniel's voice came through, sounding distinctly unconvinced. That's one word for 9 against 1 odds. I've faced worse. Amuro didn't mention that worse usually involved knowing his death was statistically inevitable. TLC, you have eyes on the approach vector. Indeed. The Jaffa's response came from his concealed position 300 km spinward. Long-range sensors detect hyperspace windows forming. Multiple signatures. They are arriving. Amuro's new type senses flared before the sensors confirmed. He felt them, 3 distinct presences of overwhelming arrogance and ancient malice. System Lords Baal, Nerdy, and Kali, each commanding 3 Hattacks. 9 massive warships dropping out of hyperspace in perfect formation. They looked like geometric nightmares, golden pyramids bristling with weapons, shields glowing with sickly energy. Each one capable of glassing a planet. All of them hunting him. Holy Hannah, Carter breathed from Prometheus. Sensors are lighting up like Christmas. Those shields are operating at frequencies we've never seen. And their weapons, they've upgraded since our last encounters. They learned from Yu's defeat, Valla said from her position in Prometheus's sensor bay. Baal especially. He's cunning, adaptable. Don't underestimate him. Prometheus, commence operation, Hammond's voice cut through from SGC's remote command post. Make them believe we're desperate. Lieutenant Ray, you're authorized to engage when ready. Amuro took a breath, fingers dancing across controls. The Gundam's reactor output increased, Minovsky particles flooding the asteroid field in concentrations that would blind every sensor system for hundreds of kilometers. The Hotaks wouldn't be able to coordinate electronically. They'd have to rely on visual confirmation and close-range communication. Exactly what he wanted. All units, maintain communications discipline, O'Neill ordered. Remember, we only get one shot at this. The Gundam emerged from concealment, thrusters firing in controlled bursts that sent it drifting across the asteroid field's central plane. Deliberately visible. Deliberately vulnerable looking. 3 seconds. That's how long it took for every Hotak to acquire target lock. Staff cannons opened fire simultaneously, green energy beams lancing through space. Amuro was already moving, combat instincts honed through 8 months of the one-year war translating directly to this battlefield. The mobile suit spun through three-dimensional space, using asteroids as cover, thrusters providing impossible maneuverability that no capital ship could match. Prometheus, they're committed. Amuro reported, weaving between staff cannon blasts that vaporized asteroids in his wake. Initiating attack run. He raised the beam rifle and fired. The megaparticle beam crossed vacuum faster than human perception, striking Goa'uld's flagship shields. Energy cascaded across the barrier, stronger than U's had been. Modified. They'd learned. Shields adapting. Carter's analysis came rapid fire. They're rotating frequencies. Your beam weapons are less effective than before. Then I'll hit them harder. Amuro fired again, pouring sustained beam fire into the same shield point. The barrier flickered, weakened, but held. Behind him, 3 Hotaks were pursuing, breaking formation to chase the mobile suit through the asteroid field. Perfect. SG-3, you're up. O'Neill's command triggered the first ambush. Hidden among asteroids, SG teams opened fire with shoulder-mounted anti-armor rockets enhanced with Naquata warheads. The weapons struck Hotak hulls that had been focusing shields forward to pursue the Gundam. Explosions rippled across golden pyramids. Minor damage, but enough to get their attention. Enough to make them angry. Jaffa deployment detected. TLCS warning. Death gliders launching from hangar bays. Approximately 40 craft. Amuro cursed. He'd expected pursuit, but 40 fighters complicated everything. The Gundam was designed for mobile suit combat, not dogfighting swarms of spacecraft. Then again, improvisation was his specialty. Prometheus, I need covering fire. Amuro dove toward a massive asteroid, death gliders swarming after him like angry insects. He skimmed the rock surface, using its bulk to shield from Hotak weapons, beam rifle firing in rapid bursts that caught death gliders too slow to evade. 2 fighters exploded. 3 more. The Gundam's Vulcan guns opened up, 60mm rounds tearing through death glider armor at close range. But there were too many, and staff cannon fire from pursuing Hotaks was getting uncomfortably accurate. Amuro, break left. Carter's voice carried urgency. Now. He obeyed instinctively, slamming thrusters to maximum lateral acceleration. A massive energy beam from Prometheus cut through space where he'd been, striking Goa'uld's flagship directly. Asgard-enhanced railgun rounds followed, hammering shields that had been weakened by the Gundam's sustained fire. Their shields are fluctuating. Carter reported. Keep hitting them. But the other Hotaks were adapting. Nerdy's forces spread wide, attempting to flank. Kali's ships moved to cut off escape routes. Goa'uld's flagship charged weapons that made Amuro's new type senses scream warnings. That's a primary bombardment cannon. Valla's voice held panic. Same type you was going to use on Earth. Targeting Prometheus, TLC confirmed. They seek to eliminate Tauri support craft. Not happening. Amuro's hands moved faster than thought. He fired thrusters in a ballistic arc that sent the Gundam hurtling directly toward Goa'uld's flagship, beam rifle blazing. The megaparticle beam hammered the same shield point repeatedly, and this time physics overcame technology. The shield collapsed. Now. O'Neill's command unleashed hell. Every SG team fired simultaneously. Naquadah-enhanced explosives Carter had rigged throughout the asteroid field detonating in coordinated sequence. The explosions created a debris storm that hammered Hatak hulls, forcing shields to compensate in multiple directions. Amuro didn't waste the opening. He closed to point-blank range with Goa'uld's flagship, drew both beam sabers, and carved into the pyramid's hull like a surgeon. Luna titanium blade met Naquadah-reinforced armor, and armor lost. The mobile suit tore through outer plating, exposing internal systems. Breach detected. Someone shouted over comm, "He's cutting through their hull." Jaffa forces responding. TLCS warning came with covering fire. Death gliders converging on Gundam position. Amiro abandoned the beam sabers, leaving them embedded in Goa'uld's hull, still active, carving deeper, and spun to face the death glider swarm. The beam rifle fired in rapid succession, each shot calculated for maximum efficiency. 1 shot, 1 kill. 2. 3. 5. The Vulcan guns screamed, filling space with high-velocity rounds. But there were too many. Staff cannon fire from multiple angles converged. His shield took 3 direct hits and shattered, composite layers vaporizing. Armor beneath showed glowing damage. "I'm hit," Amiro reported, forcing the Gundam into evasive spiral. "Shield down, armor compromised, reactor temperature rising. Get out of there," O'Neill commanded. Negative. Amiro's new type senses showed him something the sensors couldn't, a pattern in the enemy formation, a moment of vulnerability as Nerdy's ships moved to support Goa'uld. Prometheus, target Nerdy's flagship, Section 4 Delta. Now. That's right in the middle of their formation. Pendergast protested. "Trust me." Prometheus fired. Asgard beam weapons and railgun rounds converged on the coordinates Amiro specified. Nerdy's flagship took the full barrage on shields already weakened by debris impacts. The barrier collapsed, and 1 railgun round penetrated, striking something critical. The Hatak exploded from within, secondary explosions rippling through its structure. The pyramid broke apart, debris expanding outward in a lethal sphere. 1 down. Carter's voice carried disbelief. Amuro, how did you know that would work?" "I felt it." Amuro couldn't explain new type awareness to non-new types. He just knew, the same way he'd always known in combat. 8 to go. Prometheus, Emergency Transport Protocol Alpha, I need ammunition resupply. The Asgard beam caught him, transported the Gundam directly to Prometheus's hangar. Amuro didn't even wait for full materialization before ejecting spent beam rifle magazines and grabbing fresh ones from the prepared rack. Carter's team had fabricated 20 additional magazines using reverse-engineered Minovsky particle containment. Enough to keep fighting. Enough to maybe survive. Reactor containment is at 60%, Carter reported, pulling data through the transport link. "You're running too hot. If you push much harder." "I know." Amuro felt the heat through his pilot suit, sweat soaking the cushioned interior. "But we can't stop now. They're regrouping." Through the sensor feed, he watched the remaining 8 Hataks form defensive sphere formation. Smarter tactics. Goa'uld had learned from watching him fight. The System Lord wouldn't make the same mistakes twice. "They're adapting," O'Neill said grimly. "Ideas?" Amuro studied the tactical display, new type awareness processing hundreds of variables simultaneously. Formation strength, shield overlap, weapons coverage, pilot psychology. The System Lords expected him to attack directly again. Expected the same hit-and-run tactics. So he'd do something unexpected. Prometheus, I need you to make a high-speed pass through their formation, Amiro said. Maximum acceleration, no evasion, straight through the center. That's suicide, Pendergast said flatly. It's bait. Amuro's hands were steady on controls despite exhaustion. They'll focus fire on you because you're the bigger threat. Which means they won't be looking for me. Carter, can you modulate the Gundam's Minovsky particle emission to match Prometheus's engine signature? Silence for 3 heartbeats. Then Carter's voice, carrying the excitement of understanding, yes. Yes. If we sync emissions, the Gundam will be invisible to their sensors during your approach. They'll never see you coming. Exactly. Amuro checked ammunition. 16 magazines, full charge. 1 shot to break their formation. After that, it's chaos. Make chaos work for us. General Hammond. Pendergast's question went back to SGC command. Do it, Hammond's voice carried the weight of command. All units, prepare for final assault. This is for Earth. Make it count. Amuro felt the transport beam activate, depositing the Gundam back into the asteroid field. He dialed the Minovsky reactor to maximum output, particles flooding space in concentrations that would make electronic warfare specialists weep. The Prometheus began its acceleration run, shields at maximum, every weapon system charging. And Amuro followed in its wake, invisible ghost riding the ship's sensor shadow, closing distance with 8 system lords who thought they'd already won. His new type senses expanded, feeling the flow of battle, the currents of probability. He saw the moment approaching, the instant where everything would either fall apart or come together. The instant where he'd prove the Gundam wasn't just a weapon. It was hope. Prometheus screamed through space at maximum acceleration, shields blazing as 8 Hattacks opened fire simultaneously. Staff cannon blasts hammered the Earth ship from every angle, energy cascading across barriers that buckled but held. Pendergast pushed the engines beyond rated capacity, the ship shuddering under combined assault. And in its sensor shadow, invisible beneath Minovsky particle interference, the Gundam closed. Amuro felt time dilate, his new type awareness painting the battlefield in crystalline clarity. He saw shield frequencies, weapon charge cycles, the microdelays between System Lord commands and Jaffa execution. He saw the pattern, the mathematical certainty of coordinated fire, beautiful in its precision, fatal in its predictability. He saw the opening. Now. His voice cut through calm static. The Gundam burst from concealment, emerging from Prometheus's wake at the exact moment the Hattacks firing cycles reached minimum charge. 3 seconds. That's how long he had before they could target him effectively. Amuro made those seconds count. Beam rifle fire lanced through vacuum with surgical precision. Not trying to penetrate shields, targeting the shield generators themselves, the external projector nodes that maintain defensive barriers. 1 shot vaporized Kali's forward projector. 2nd shot caught Goa'uld's port generator. 3rd struck a support ship that had moved to cover formation gaps. Shield integrity collapsed across multiple vessels simultaneously. All teams, weapons free. O'Neill's command unleashed coordinated chaos. SG units hidden throughout the asteroid field opened fire with everything they had. Naquadah-enhanced rockets, plasma charges, improvised explosives rigged to asteroidal chunks that had been positioned over 48 hours. The debris storm hammered exposed Hattack hulls, and this time armor couldn't withstand the assault. Explosions rippled across golden pyramids. Secondary detonations as ammunition stores cooked off. One of Kali's support ships broke apart, its reactor going critical in a flash that temporarily blinded sensors. 2 down, 6 to go. Carter's voice carried fierce satisfaction. Amaru, their formation is collapsing. But Goa'uld was already adapting. The System Lord's flagship pulled back, its remaining shields reinforced by power diverted from weapons. The other Hattacks followed his lead, forming a tighter defensive sphere that concentrated their overlapping shields. "Clever," Amuro muttered, circling the formation at extreme range. His new type senses felt Baal's presence, ancient, calculating, burning with rage at being outmaneuvered by a teenage human. "But you're thinking like a fleet commander. I'm thinking like a mobile suit pilot." There was a difference. Fleet tactics assumed capital ships engaging at standoff ranges, exchanging fire until one side's shields failed. Mobile suit doctrine assumed close-quarters combat where speed and maneuverability trumped raw firepower. The Gundam wasn't a ship. It was a soldier. Amuro fired thrusters, accelerating directly toward the defensive sphere. Death gliders swarmed to intercept, and he engaged them with Vulcan fire, not even slowing. The mobile suit carved through the fighter screen like a beam saber through butter, leaving explosions in its wake. "He's going for close assault," someone shouted over comm. "Amuro, they're targeting you with primary weapons." Carter's warning came with sensor data flooding his display. Every Hattack in formation was charging bombardment cannons, the same weapons designed to crack planetary shields. If those hit, they won't. Amuro's hands moved with absolute certainty, new type awareness guiding every micro-adjustment. He felt the weapons charging, felt the targeting computers calculating firing solutions, felt the moment they'd release. And he moved before they fired. The Gundam jinked hard, thrusters firing in impossible sequence. 6 bombardment beams crossed through space where he'd been, and where they intersected, reality screamed. The combined energy tore open a brief quantum fluctuation, dangerous, unstable, gone in microseconds. But Amuro felt it through his new type senses. Felt something familiar in that distortion. Something like the dimensional rift that had brought him here. No time to analyze. He closed to knife-fighting range with Baal's flagship, drew both replacement beam sabers, and became a whirlwind of plasma and destruction. The mobile suit moved like a dancer, like a demon, like war itself given form. Beam sabers carved through exposed hull sections, each strike calculated for maximum structural damage. Jaffa boarding parties deploying via ring transport. TLCS warning. They seek to board Prometheus. Already on it. O'Neill's response came with P-90 fire echoing through Prometheus's corridors. SG teams engaged Jaffa warriors in brutal close-quarters combat, the Earth ship's interior becoming a war zone. Amuro wanted to help, but he had his own battle. Baal's flagship was firing point defense weapons at near-contact range, staff cannons that couldn't miss at this distance. His armor took hit after hit, ablative layers vaporizing, structural integrity warnings screaming across every display. Reactor containment at 40%. Carter's voice held barely controlled panic. "Amuro, you need to disengage." "Not yet." He drove both beam sabers into the Hattack's reactor housing, feeling through the Gundam sensors as Naquata containment began to fail. "Prometheus, emergency transport. Get your people out of range. We've still got Jaffa on board. Now." Prometheus fired thrusters, breaking away from the formation. The Asgard transporters worked overtime, pulling SG teams directly from combat and rematerializing them in secure sections. And Amuro held position, beam sabers buried in Baal's reactor, watching containment failure cascade toward critical. "You would destroy yourself to defeat me." Baal's voice boomed through external speakers, the system lord's rage palpable even across vacuum. "Foolish child. I am eternal. I am a god. You're a parasite," Amuro said quietly. "And I've killed worse." He fired the thrusters at maximum, tearing the beam sabers free as he rocketed away from Baal's flagship. Behind him, the Naquata reactor reached critical mass. The explosion was beautiful and terrible, a miniature sun blooming in space, consuming the Hattack in fusion fire. The shockwave caught the Gundam, sent it tumbling through the asteroid field. Amiro fought for control as alarms screamed, systems failed, and his vision grayed at the edges from impact acceleration. 3 down. Someone shouted through static-filled comm, Goa'uld's flagship is gone. But the battle wasn't over. 5 Hataks remained, and they were done playing. Kali and Nerdy's remaining forces coordinated their attack with professional precision, recognizing the Gundam as the primary threat. They didn't try fancy tactics. Just overwhelming, concentrated fire. Amuro couldn't dodge them all. A staff cannon blast caught his left arm, vaporized it below the elbow. Another struck the torso, punching through compromised armor. The Gundam's left shoulder assembly seized, hydraulics failing, structural integrity at 30%. I'm hit. Amuro reported through teeth clenched against pain, phantom pain, his brain interpreting the mobile suit's damage as his own injuries. New type curse. Significant damage, multiple systems offline. That's it, you're done. O'Neill's command was absolute. Prometheus, transport him out. Negative. Amuro's voice was iron despite the agony. 5 Hataks still operational. If they reach Earth, then we'll handle them. O'Neill shouted. Kid, you've done enough. You're not dying for. I'm not dying. Amuro forced his breathing to steady, forced his mind to clarity despite pain and exhaustion. His new type awareness expanded, reaching through the Gundam's damaged systems, through the asteroid field, through the quantum foam of space itself. And he felt it. The distortion from earlier. The dimensional rift that bombardment beams had briefly opened. It was still there, barely, a quantum scar in spacetime that resonated with the same frequency as the anomaly that had brought him here. Carter, he said, voice suddenly calm, what would happen if I overloaded the Minovsky reactor next to a dimensional instability? Silence. Then, the particle cascade would, oh God, Amuro, no. You'd tear open a rift between dimensions. The energy release would be catastrophic. How catastrophic? Think small supernova. Everything within 1,000 kilometers would be pulled into the dimensional breach before it collapsed. Including you. But not Prometheus. Not Earth. Amuro studied the tactical display, seeing the solution with crystalline clarity. The 5 remaining Hataks were pursuing him, ignoring Prometheus in favor of destroying the mobile suit. If he could lure them to the distortion point, overload the reactor. 1 shot. 1 chance. Total certainty of death. Char Aznable's voice echoed in memory, you're a true new type, Amuro. You see possibilities others can't. Bright Noah's final order before the dimensional jump, come back alive, damn it. His mother's face, last time he'd seen her before the war consumed everything. I'm sorry, Amuro whispered. Not to them, they couldn't hear across dimensions. To himself, maybe. To the kid he'd been before Side 7 burned. Amuro, what are you planning? Daniel's voice, tight with concern. Something stupid, Amuro said, and meant it. Colonel O'Neill. Tell General Hammond, tell him thank you. For treating me like a soldier instead of a weapon. Tell Carter her engineering was brilliant. Tell everyone, his voice caught. Tell them I chose this. That makes it different. Kid, don't you dare. Amuro cut the comm and slammed thrusters to maximum, ignoring every structural warning as the damaged Gundam accelerated toward the dimensional scar. Behind him, 5 Hataks pursued, pouring fire into the crippled mobile suit. His left arm was gone. Right shoulder barely functional. Reactor containment at 20%. Life support failing. He was dying by degrees, and he knew it. But dying could have purpose. Come on, he whispered to the pursuing system lords. Follow me. Just a little further. The Gundam crossed the threshold where bombardment beams had intersected. Amuro felt the dimensional instability like ice water on his new type senses, wrong physics, broken reality, a hole in the universe barely held closed by quantum probability. He reached the reactor controls. "For Earth," Amuro said. "Both of them." And initiated overload. The Minovsky reactor's containment failed catastrophically. Particles cascaded in geometric progression, each collision producing more particles, energy building toward infinite in finite space. The dimensional scar ripped open, and reality screamed. Light. Impossible colors. The sensation of falling through dimensions while standing still. Amuro felt the Gundam come apart around him, felt his body dissolving into component atoms, felt consciousness expand beyond physical form. Through it all, his new type awareness showed him the 5 Hattacks caught in the dimensional rift's gravity, pulled inexorably toward the breach. They fired weapons, activated hyperspace, tried desperate evasive maneuvers. None of it mattered. The rift consumed them, dragged them into space between dimensions where physics had no meaning. Gone. Erased. 5 system lords and their armies, eliminated in one impossible gambit. The rift collapsed. Reality reasserted itself. And in the sudden silence, the Rhinoth asteroid field held only debris and echoes. On Prometheus, the crew stared at empty sensors in stunned silence. "He's gone," Carter whispered. "The Gundam, Amuro, all of it. Just gone." O'Neill's hand tightened on the railing, knuckles white. "Did we win?" "Enemy forces eliminated," Pendergast reported, voice hollow. "All Hattack signatures lost. No survivors detected." But, he couldn't finish. "He saved us," Daniel said quietly. "He saved Earth." "Both Earths, in a way." TLC bowed his head. "He died a warrior's death. Fighting for those who could not fight for themselves. His sacrifice will be remembered." On Earth, in the SGC briefing room, General Hammond stood at the window overlooking the gate room. The Stargate stood silent, no longer a bridge to other worlds but a monument to one young pilot who'd come through it, fought for a dimension not his own, and given everything. 16 years old, Hammond said to the empty room. He was 16 years old. And he saved us all. The stars turned overhead, uncaring. And in space between dimensions, in quantum foam where physics broke down and probability became certainty, something stirred. A consciousness. Scattered, diffuse, barely coherent. A new type awareness that had expanded beyond physical limits. Amuro Ray, the universe whispered. "Not yet," he answered, and began the long journey home. 3 months after the Battle of Rhinoth, Major Samantha Carter stood in SGC's hangar bay, staring at the empty space where the Gundam had once stood. The repair scaffolding remained, a skeletal monument to frantic engineering and desperate hope. Technicians had removed it twice, but she kept ordering it restored. Just in case. Still here. O'Neill's voice echoed across the hangar. He descended from the observation platform, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Carter, it's 0200 hours. Even workaholics need sleep." She accepted the coffee gratefully. "I keep running the calculations. The dimensional rift, the Minovsky particle cascade, the quantum signatures. There's a non-zero probability that the kid survived being atomized in a dimensional collapse." O'Neill's tone was gentle despite the blunt words. "Carter, I want to believe it too. But we saw the sensor readings. Nothing could survive that. Amuro wasn't just anything." Carter pulled up holographic data, equations filling the air between them. His new type abilities operated on quantum levels we don't fully understand. He sensed things before they happened, perceived dimensional boundaries, interfaced with technology through brainwave patterns that shouldn't be possible. What if consciousness at that level doesn't follow conventional rules? O'Neill studied the equations he couldn't begin to comprehend. "You think he's out there somewhere? In the spaces between?" "I think," Carter's voice cracked slightly. I think we owe it to him to keep looking. He saved Earth. He saved millions of people. And he was 16, Jack. 16 years old, and he chose to die alone in space rather than let those system lords reach our planet. He was a soldier. O'Neill's expression was distant. Best kind, too. The kind who understood that the mission comes first, but never stopped caring about the people he was protecting. He took a long drink of coffee. You know what Hammond's putting together? The memorial? More than that. A whole program. Mobile Weapons Research Division. Using what you learned from the Gundam to develop Earth's own defensive platforms. He wants you to head it. Carter looked at the empty hangar bay. I don't know if I can. Every time I look at the specs, I see Amuro explaining the systems. Excited about the engineering, even in the middle of a war. He loved that machine, Jack. Not as a weapon. As a partner. Then honor that. O'Neill's hand found her shoulder. Build something he'd be proud of. Something that protects people without consuming the ones who pilot it. That's how we make his sacrifice mean something. Before Carter could respond, alarms blared through the facility. Unscheduled off-world activation. They ran. By the time they reached the control room, the Stargate was already engaged, chevrons locking with mechanical precision. But the readings were wrong, energy signatures spiking beyond normal parameters, quantum fluctuations that made sensor arrays scream warnings. What the hell? The gate technician's voice held panic. General Hammond, this isn't normal gate activation. The power readings are off the scale. Close the iris. Hammond commanded from his position overlooking the gate room. Iris won't respond. Another technician frantically worked controls. Something's overriding our systems. The wormhole exploded into existence, but it wasn't the usual stable blue shimmer. This was chaos, colors that shouldn't exist, lightning arcing from the event horizon, space itself seeming to warp around the gate. And through the distortion, something was coming. Something massive. Defensive positions. O'Neill shouted, and soldiers scrambled, weapons trained on the impossible portal. The figure emerged slowly, as if fighting against resistance. First an arm, white and red armor scarred by unimaginable forces. Then a torso, hydraulics sparking with dimensional energy. A head, camera eyes flickering with uncertain light. The RX-78-2 Gundam stepped through the Stargate and collapsed onto the ramp with a crash that shook the facility. Silence. Total, absolute silence as everyone stared. Jesus Christ, O'Neill breathed. The Gundam's chest panel opened with a hiss of escaping atmosphere. The core fighter ejected, smoking and damaged, its hull covered in crystalline growths that shouldn't exist in normal space. It slid down the ramp, came to rest at the bottom. The canopy opened. Amuro Ray tumbled out, gasping, and collapsed onto the cold concrete. Medical team. Hammond's command broke the stunned paralysis. Get Dr. Fraser down here now. Carter was already running, taking the stairs 3 at a time. She reached Amuro as he struggled to sit up, his pilot suit torn and burned, covered in a fine crystalline dust that dissolved at her touch. Easy, she said, hands shaking as she helped support him. Don't move. We've got you. Carter. Amuro's voice was hoarse, confused. His eyes focused slowly, like someone waking from a very long dream. What, how long? 3 months. Amuro, we thought you were dead. The dimensional rift collapsed, all the sensors showed. I was dead. His words stopped her cold. Or, not dead. Dispersed. Consciousness without form, existing in the spaces between realities. I felt myself scattered across dimensions, each piece experiencing different timelines, different possibilities. His new-type enhanced eyes, had they always glowed slightly, or was that new, met hers? I saw my Earth, Carter. Saw the 1-year war still raging. Saw white base fighting without the Gundam. I tried to reach them, but the dimensional boundaries. Daniel arrived with water, which Amuro drank desperately. How did you get back? The Gundam, your body, the sensors detected complete atomic dispersal. I don't know. Amuro looked at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. I was, everywhere and nowhere. Lost in quantum probability. But I felt something pulling me back. Like an anchor. This. He touched his chest, where the pilot suit's fabric was burned away, revealing skin marked with geometric patterns that glowed faintly. The Gundam's learning computer. The biometric interface. Years of synchronization between pilot and machine created a quantum entanglement. When I dispersed, the Gundam systems held an imprint of my consciousness. The mobile suit reconstructed you, Carter breathed, understanding dawning. Use the dimensional energies and quantum data to rebuild your physical form. That's impossible. That's new type evolution. TLC's voice carried reverence as he joined them. You have transcended physical limitations and returned. Amuro Ray, you are no longer simply human. I'm not sure what I am anymore. Amuro's voice was quiet. I remember being in 1,000 places simultaneously. Seeing every possible timeline branch from every decision. It was. He trailed off, unable to articulate the experience. Dr. Fraser arrived with medical teams, immediately running scans. Her expression shifted from professional concern to utter bewilderment. His vital signs are stable, but there's something in his bloodstream. Crystalline structures at the cellular level, integrated with his nervous system. It's reading as neither organic nor technological, just, present. She looked at Hammond. Sir, I have no idea what I'm looking at. He should be dead. Or transformed into something completely non-human. But he's sitting here, breathing, talking, apparently fine. I'm not fine. Amuro's correction was gentle. I'm changed. The dimensional transit, the new type abilities, the interface with the Gundam, it all combined into something new. I can still feel the spaces between dimensions, Carter. Feel the gate network's quantum connections spanning the galaxy. Feel, he stopped, sensing something. There's someone else. Another consciousness, reaching through the Stargate. Watching. Hammond's expression hardened. Threat? No. Amuro's glowing eyes focused on the now dormant gate. Curious. Ancient. And, familiar somehow. Like I felt it before, during meditation with TLC. Something in the network itself. The ancients, Daniel said quietly. The race that built the Stargates. They ascended to higher planes of existence. If your consciousness dispersed across dimensions and then reconstructed through the gate's quantum systems, you might have touched the same plane they exist on. Did they help you? O'Neill asked. Get back here. Amuro considered this. Maybe. I felt presences guiding me, showing me pathways through dimensional chaos. But they never communicated directly. Just, nudged. Like they were interested but constrained by rules about interference. That sounds like the ancients, Daniel confirmed. Non-interference is their primary directive for ascended beings. Hammond descended to the gate room, his expression carrying relief he couldn't fully hide. Lieutenant Ray. Welcome home. We have a lot to discuss, your condition, the Gundam status, the dimensional transit data. But first, he extended his hand. Thank you. For saving Earth. And for coming back. Amuro shook it, feeling the genuine gratitude. I didn't mean to sacrifice myself, General. I just couldn't see another option. When the Gundam and I came apart in that rift, I thought I'd failed everyone. Failed my crew back home, failed the people here. You didn't fail anyone, Carter said firmly. You stopped 5 system lords from reaching Earth. You prevented planetary bombardment. You saved millions of lives. That's not failure. But I didn't get home. The weight of it crashed down suddenly. The 1-year war is still happening. My Earth, my dimension, I'm still trapped here. And now I'm not even fully human anymore. O'Neill crouched to eye level. Kid, I've seen a lot of people come through that gate. Humans, aliens, ascended beings, people from alternate timelines. You know what I learned? What you are matters a hell of a lot less than what you do. You're still Amuro Ray. Still the pilot who wouldn't let Earth burn. Everything else. He gestured at the faint glow in Amuro's eyes, the crystalline patterns on his skin. Just means you've got new tools to work with. The Colonel speaks wisdom, TLC said. You have walked between worlds and returned. That journey has changed you, but it has not diminished you. If anything, you are more than you were. Amuro looked at the faces surrounding him, concern, relief, curiosity, genuine care. 3 months ago, he'd been a stranger from another dimension, a refugee with a weapon they needed. Now they looked at him like he belonged. Like he was one of them. The Gundam, he said, turning to look at the mobile suit. It stood on the ramp, scarred and damaged but intact. Impossible engineering sustained by impossible circumstances. Is it operational? Carter ran portable scanners. Reactor is online but running at reduced capacity. The Minovsky particle systems are stable, but there's dimensional residue throughout the structure. We'll need to run comprehensive diagnostics, but, she smiled. But yes. I think with repairs, it'll fly again. Good. Amuro accepted help standing, legs shaky from 3 months of non-existence. Because if I'm stuck in this dimension, might as well make myself useful. The Goa'uld won't stop. There are other threats out there. And this Earth needs defending. What about your Earth? Daniel asked gently. The war you left behind. Amuro was quiet for a long moment. I felt them, in the spaces between dimensions. The crew of White Base, fighting without me. Bright Noah coordinating defenses. Even Char Aznavour, my rival, locked in battles that determined the war's outcome. His voice strengthened. They're still fighting. And someday, somehow, I'll find a way back to help them. But right now, I'm here. And here needs me too. Hammond nodded slowly. Then you're hereby assigned to Earth's defense on permanent rotation. Welcome to Stargate Command, Lieutenant. Officially this time. There's one condition, Amuro said. The Mobile Weapons Research Division Carter mentioned. I want to help. Not just with my Gundam, but designing systems that other people can use. Earth shouldn't depend on one mobile suit from another dimension. You need your own. Now you're talking my language. Carter's grin was infectious. I've got preliminary designs based on the Gundam's architecture. Scaled down, adapted for Earth technology, optimized for gate operations. We could build a fleet of mobile weapons platforms that can discuss this after medical evaluation, Dr. Fraser interrupted firmly. Lieutenant Ray, you're coming to the infirmary. I need to run every test we have and probably invent a few new ones. Whatever happened to you in that dimensional rift, we need to understand it. Later, Amuro agreed. But first. He turned to the Gundam, reaching out with his new type awareness. The mobile suit's systems responded, damaged but alive, recognizing its pilot's consciousness. Thank you. For bringing me home. The Gundam's camera eyes flickered. Was it acknowledgement? Imagination? Or had the quantum entanglement between pilot and machine created something new, a partnership that transcended normal boundaries between consciousness and technology? Amuro didn't know. Wasn't sure he wanted to know. Some mysteries were better experienced than analyzed. As medical teams escorted him toward the infirmary, Amuro looked back at the Stargate one final time. Somewhere out there, across dimensions and realities, his original Earth fought on. The one-year war continued without him, battles won and lost, people living and dying. He would find his way back. Eventually. But until then, this Earth, this dimension's version of humanity, had given him purpose, acceptance, and something he hadn't realized he'd lost in the war. Hope. The gate room emptied slowly, personnel returning to their stations. But Carter remained, staring at the Gundam, her mind already racing with possibilities. Mobile suit technology integrated with Earth's resources. Defense platforms that could protect the planet without depending on one-dimensional refugee. A future where humanity stood equal to the threats among the stars. "We'll build something incredible," she promised the silent mobile suit. "Something Amiro can be proud of. Something that honors what he sacrificed." The Gundam stood silent, scarred from impossible battles, marked by dimensional transit that should have destroyed it. But it endured. Like its pilot. Ready for the next mission. Ready for whatever came through that gate. And in the spaces between dimensions, in quantum foam where consciousness existed beyond physical limits, other new types stirred. Felt Amuro's return. Recognized one of their kind transcending boundaries. The barrier between dimensions grows thin, they whispered across probability. What was separate may converge. What was lost may be found. Soon. The days following Amuro's impossible return settled into structured routine, but nothing could truly be normal after a pilot and his mobile suit returned from dimensional death. General Hammond established protocols for what they quietly termed enhanced personnel, soldiers changed by contact with technologies and forces beyond human experience. Amuro Ray became the first official entry in that classification. The Mobile Weapons Research Division grew from concept to reality within weeks, Carter's genius combining with Amuro's practical experience. Early prototype designs took shape, not replicas of the Gundam, but Earth's own interpretation of mobile suit doctrine adapted to Stargate operations. Smaller than the RX-78-2, optimized for gate travel and planetary defense, equipped with reverse-engineered Minovsky reactors and beam weapons technologies that would have taken decades to develop without dimensional assistance. Other nations wanted access to the technology. The NID renewed pressure for transfer to Area 51. The IOA demanded oversight. Hammond stonewalled them all with bureaucratic mastery, keeping the program under SGC control where Amuro could work without political interference. The cost was constant meetings, endless paperwork, and diplomatic tension that occasionally erupted into shouting matches between Hammond and oversight committees. Amuro barely noticed. He spent 18-hour days in the lab with Carter, refining systems, testing materials, pushing the boundaries between universal century engineering and Earth's Naquata-based technology. The work consumed him, gave purpose beyond surviving the next crisis. And slowly, carefully, he began teaching others how to think like mobile suit pilots. Three-dimensional combat awareness, quantum-enhanced reflexes through new type training techniques, the mental discipline required to merge consciousness with machine. The Takare made contact 2 months after his return, Selmac requesting meeting to discuss the dimensional warrior who returned from death. They studied him with scientific fascination and spiritual reverence, their symbiote-host partnerships recognizing something similar in Amuro's quantum entanglement with the Gundam. They offered alliance, intelligence, and surprisingly, friendship. The Asgard sent Thor, their supreme commander studying Amuro's dimensional transit data with the intensity of a race desperately seeking solutions to their own genetic crisis. They saw possibilities in consciousness operating beyond physical form, in quantum patterns that might bypass their cloning limitations. Thor departed promising to share advanced technologies in exchange for continued research cooperation. And through it all, the Gundam stood in the hangar bay, undergoing repairs that Carter oversaw with reverence usually reserved for archaeological treasures. The mobile suit's systems remained partially incomprehensible, dimensional energies woven through its structure in ways that defied analysis. It worked because it worked, quantum probability favoring function over theoretical impossibility. Amiro felt the Gundam's presence constantly through their entanglement. In quiet moments, he sensed other mobile suits across dimensional boundaries, Zaku's and Dom's fighting in the one-year war, his crew aboard White Base struggling without their ace pilot. The separation ached, but no longer felt absolute. He'd walked between dimensions once. Eventually, he'd learn to do it again. SG-1 adopted him fully into their team rotation, though he technically operated as independent contractor rather than official military personnel. O'Neill's dry humor, Daniel's intellectual curiosity, TLC's warrior wisdom, and Carter's engineering passion became touchstones of belonging in a universe not his own. They understood what few others could, the weight of fighting wars not of your choosing, the responsibility of protecting those who couldn't protect themselves, the cost of being weapon and person simultaneously. On quiet nights, Amuro stood at the mountain's observation post, watching stars identical to those over his Earth but arranged in patterns made different by dimensional displacement. He thought about Bright Noah's last order to return alive, about the crew he'd abandoned, about teenage pilots on both sides of the one-year war dying for causes they barely understood. He would honor their sacrifice by becoming something more than a weapon. More than a soldier. By building a future where mobile suits protected rather than destroyed, where technology served humanity rather than consuming it, where children never had to climb into cockpits and learn to kill efficiently. The Stargate remained his connection to that future, ancient technology singing with quantum resonance, linking worlds, bridging impossible distances. Through it, threats would continue emerging. The Goa'uld would regroup. New enemies would rise. Crisis would follow crisis with the rhythm of war. But Earth would face them with mobile suits of their own. With defenders who understood that strength meant protecting others, not dominating them. With hope that transcended dimensions. Amuro Ray had died in dimensional fire and returned changed. Not fully human, not quite machine, something new emerging from the spaces between. A new type evolved beyond his universe's understanding. A pilot bound to his mobile suit through quantum entanglement that might never be replicated. He was ready for whatever came next. The Gundam stood waiting, marked by impossible battles, sustained by impossible physics, ready to defend this Earth until its pilot found the way home. And in the spaces between dimensions, the barriers continued thinning. Indeed. More stories await.